First Smoke family, big episode today. We got the homie on.
What's up? I'm Heston with Floro Farm. Let's talk home growers and LEDs.
This is the home grower guy. When I type in a couple different people, when I look to knowledge myself, this is one of the guys I look to. First Smoke family, just get on FSOTD.com already. What are you doing? Get on the episode, get on FSOTD.com. You get hooked up with all the sponsors you see on the pod, the newest episodes, early access, behind the scenes, no commercials, maybe 6-7 weeks ahead of time, and we hook you up like family. GrowGeneration.com, Fave and undercanopy lighting, you know, Drip Hydro, we've been rocking with them forever, and Raw Rolling Papers. Get with it, FSOTD.com. Let's talk LEDs.
Let's get into it.
Let's talk home grows.
Chop it up. I'm struggling to find a water source at the time, and we had this beautiful spring that has to originate below ground on your property, flow above ground on your property, and then flow back below ground, all on your property before you be able to use it. So now I've got 33 acres, like a 20-acre hillside. So for like 2 weeks, I was on my hands and knees trying to find a spring. I just needed one trickle of water and I could develop it. And there was this certain plant that would only grow if there was a spring within X amount of feet from the surface. So I finally found
First Smoke family, we're already sparking up. We're already deep in convo. We got one of the big homies out here, Home Grower Nation. This is for all you guys, all the home growers out there, the guys that got under 30 lights, or let's say under 40, I think. There's a sweet spot, and there's certain people that I look to for knowledge, that I like following, that I like watching what they're up to. I like to take knowledge, sponge in. You're one of them. Heston, Floro Farm, welcome to First Smoke of the Day, big dog.
Man, yeah, absolutely pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and that's a huge compliment. I appreciate that. It means a lot.
Utah education,
yeah,
like dragonfly earth medicine. I like watching. There's a couple botanical guys that I like to watch because they do stuff you can use on foliar feeds and things like that. Talk about you perfecting, in my opinion, that under 30 light category. And then also like your bucket tech. I love that.
Yeah, no, the worm towers, that's definitely been a huge hit the last couple of years. That was kind of, like a lot of inventions that just came out of necessity. I needed something to set an under canopy IPM light on that I was demoing for a company at the time. It was designed to fit on a 5-gallon plastic nursery container. So I didn't have anything in the bed. I thought, well, just throw a bucket in there. And since I got a bucket in there, may as well fill it up with worms and put it to work. And it just kind of took off from there. And I've implemented it into various size containers, and even as small as a 30-gallon, and you just kind of scale down the worm tower. But yeah, it's
what's the worm tower?
The worm tower. So that's the bucket tech. Yeah. That's like the vermicomposting.
But what's the point of it for people listening?
Yeah, it's something that a lot of people have in a separate space where you create a source of fresh worm castings, right? So high nutrient, way to recycle kitchen scraps, close the loop, keep it organic, and have a high microbial count product to use at your home. So I have that being constantly created fresh in the bed, and have the bucket where, the bottom part of the bucket's removed, it's perforated around the sides. So what I like to see before flip to flower is the roots are fully penetrated that bucket. So the plants come to the castings. You're not having to constantly take out your castings, screen your castings, feed the plants that way. The plants have direct access to it. So when the roots hit that bucket, you can tell. Like you can almost see it on the plant the day that it happens. Just the turn, just like that extra bump when I find that pot of gold kind of.
It's like hitting that third or fourth gear.
It really is. Yeah, okay. Like hit the nitrous a little bit. Yeah,
and I love it because you take the top off the bucket and you're able to look right down into where you normally can't see.
That's right. Yeah. No, it's actually, you can see almost to the bottom of the bucket. And if you remove a little bit out of the bed, you can definitely get an idea of that soil, the compaction down bottom of the bed, and get an idea of if you're getting a consistent watering was my biggest issue when I first moved from smaller containers to the 200 gallon 4x4 beds, 400 and change gallon in the 4x8 grassroots bed. If you've been hand watering like 10-gallon bags, 20-gallon bags. It's a huge volume change, right? The amount of water you need to put into the bed to fully saturate and get a proper moisture content throughout that volume of soil. It's kind of shocking whenever you first start doing it by hand. And that was one of the biggest hurdles, quite honestly, was I was built my own soil right off the bat for a big 4x8 bed, and plants were presenting with some deficiencies. So I started chasing my tail, soil tests done, all the nutrient profiles looked right on point. pH was way out of whack because it was having these large dry pockets. I was not putting near enough water in, right? So once I got a handle monitoring the soil moisture, really paying attention to the frequency I was adding water, just the night and day difference between the size of the containers, right? Moving up. And I think that's a lot of scale with everything. If you're in a 3x3 tent, 4x4 tent, you think it's going to be an easy transition. Well, I just scale this to a 10x10 or a 20x20, and you start seeing the reality of it. So there are some things that translate very easily from a small scale to a large scale. But once you stop hand watering, you stop doing hands-on every 3 or 4 plants, it does change. It's not that it's unmanageable. It's just a different approach,
Even the stuff you're handling is different, meaning like the plumbing materials go different, right?
Absolutely.
When you go from home grow.
Yeah. You start using, your valves failing in a 4x4 tent is not nearly as detrimental, both, psychologically or financially as, a few thousand square feet getting flooded out and having to do some serious remodeling. That gets pricey mistakes. So
why organic?
I kind of come full circle, right? So coming up in Northeast Oklahoma in the late 90s, I just started growing guerrilla style. And we lived on the river, and we would take these float trips upstream in the spring, and we'd start a bunch of brickweed seed. We'd keep the good seeds we find out of the brickweed over winter. And we'd start a few hundred seeds in the spring and take a 4 or 5 day float trip downstream and shotgun plant out in the creek bottoms and sloughs and the lowland and the river floodplains, and come back in the fall and check in for harvest, basically like totally hands off. And we do that in, the river bottoms. We'd go out to the power line right of ways, find the east-west power line right of ways and plant on that north side. And some of the old timers that I learned from were always obsessive about planting in these push piles. So the power company would come through, clear cut a strip and push the brush piles to one side or the other. So you'd find the brush piles on that north side of the powerway, plant a seed out in the middle, far off from water, and come back, and it would be ready for harvest in the fall. And so that was just kind of a trick that the old timers have. So now it's like looking back, and it's like, well, that was a hugelkultur bed, right? They were planting in these hugelkultur beds, hundreds and hundreds of feet long hugel mounds that the power company built for them. In the river bottoms, it's called dry farming now, right? Where you plant somewhere that the taproot's going to be able to get down to the water table, so you don't have to water it. So that's what we were unknowingly doing at the time back, and now it's all kind of come full circle. I've done indoor, outdoor, used synthetics back and forth, a lot of different nutrients, and then as I kind of scaled down to the home grow. And I was super hands-on, and I wanted to go full organic, and was using some bottled organic nutrient lines, and kind of got interested in the K&F style preparation. And it really drew me in because it was so hands-on, and it's like, it's like you're a wizard. You look at your spell book and you brew these potions and you fucking hit your plant with this magic juice and it grows. And it was really just captivating from that.
Who were some people you were looking at?
Being able to just straight to Master Cho and like the founder of K&F, and he was down in Hawaii at the time. Chris Trump has really taken the mantle and doing a lot of K&F style education and farming. And then as I went further down that rabbit hole of trying to close the loop and be more sustainable and self-sufficient, I moved away from the K&F style to the Jadam preparation, which K&F uses brown sugar and osmotic pressure to basically draw all the liquid from inside the plant matter into a nutrient solution that you can use to water. But at the end, you strain it off and you're left with like a bunch of biomass. Basically, there's a bunch of meat left on the table. So with the Jadam preparation method, you use the putrefaction process. So you take your fruits and veggies and scraps and whatever you're going to use, fill your bucket, get some water in there, and then go collect some indigenous microorganisms, a handful of dirt out from under the log on the side of the hill. And that's what initiates that putrefaction process. And they start to just digest all that biomass down into basically you're left with a liquid at the end. So it's consuming the entire plant, all the plant matter you put in there. And I think it's a more complete, dynamic nutrient solution. And I'm not having to use the brown sugar. And that was what really kind of pushed me in that direction, is like, I'm going out and foraging for all this stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm buying 2 pounds of brown sugar that came from the other side of the world. So that's not sustainable. It is better, and I will say this, I get a lot of trouble from this with the people that do K&F. There's nothing wrong with it. I think it's definitely a better choice than buying a bag of Miracle-Gro. If you're going to buy something, buy the sugar. It's like, I understand you have to make compromises. People live in areas that they can't just go out and forage for everything they need. I live on the Oregon coast, very fortunate I can, fruits, kelp, I can collect seawater. There's a broad, diverse pool for me to draw from to get what I need. But if you're in LA and you want to rock K&F, like, go to the store, buy some brown sugar, buy some bananas, do your thing. That's I don't want to rain on your parade. And I did that for a kind of
you can still support small farm and go to the farmer's market, and you can still
100%.
like, there's still ways around it, and you can still do it in like a kind of kosher way, right?
There
or whatever you want to call it.
There you go. Yeah. If you're buying, choose where you're buying it from and support your local.
It's never black or white. Everyone wants black or white. There's a lot of gray. There
is. I've consumed cannabis grown 1,000 different ways, and I've consumed a lot of great cannabis, and I've consumed some bad cannabis that was like no-till, all organic, and it just wasn't good, didn't smoke. So it doesn't guarantee success by this approach. And it's not the only way to success. Like, there's a bunch of different ways to grow, and I've smoked a lot of good weed.
For the home grower, because for you have done so much when you start to, and I'm excited to show on YouTube for everyone listening to be able to see a little bit of this, because your unique system will show on YouTube.
Okay.
We can actually show that stuff,
cool,
right? Because we're age restricted and we're demonetized. So we just show the gross stuff. We're like, fuck it. It is what it is. Right. You went down this path for the average home grower, for the guy that wants to put a few lights up or had a few unsuccessful runs or has had an okay run or two. Like, what would be something you'd give them? Like, this is what I would do.
Well, read a book. You've got a few over there on your shelf right there. I see. And that's the kind of the catch-22 is, in this day and age of instant gratification, people want to be able to put their lights up and grow like a cup winner, Oh,
and 6,000 pound first harvest.
Some people can. There are those like unique individuals who just hit it, and they're just banging and right off the bat. But for the vast majority of people, myself included, you start at the bare minimum, and you build knowledge on top of knowledge and experience, and use that experience, combine it with the knowledge you're consuming, and do better next time, right? So there's read a book. Don't just get a bunch of soil, go to the store, buy 10 boxes of dry amendments, pour it in there. You're going to torch your plant, right? You still have to consider the ratios you're putting in, and just because
that's
it's
not
organic,
the fun work,
right?
Like,
no,
and
right.
That's why people don't like to do it first. And it's always like, go do that first, because most of the shit you're going to spend money on is wrong. Don't do it.
Yeah.
First read, then go spend the money on some stuff, because already there's going to be a few things that you're going to cut out. You're going to be like, oh, damn, I thought I would needed this. You're like, no, you need the other thing.
100%. Yeah, no. And it's easy, especially now there's so many options. There's a trinket and a gadget for absolutely everything, which I do like. And the automation and the monitoring and the hands off, it's handy. But at the end of the day, it's a plant that you can grow with minimal technology, very minimal investment. And I say that if you're going to spend money on one thing, it's environmental controls, right? Because I see a lot of people get very frustrated and will quit after a year because you can't get rid of the powdery mildew. And it all comes down to environmental control, and they're spending,
low yields even too.
Oh yeah, 100%. You're spending money on lights and tents in the nutrient line, and then it's just like the humidity's out of control. It's too cold at night, too hot during the day.
Or they're not controlling it at all anyway.
Yeah,
they're like, it stays stagnant in my room. You're like, no, it doesn't.
Yeah, no,
you haven't seen. Even just putting a monitor in there and seeing at night what's happening.
Yeah, the temperature. Exactly. While you're in the tent all day, it's like, man, it's 80 degrees. It's fine in there, but it's 60 at night, and that 20-degree temperature swing is just killing your plants.
Well, and then you're like, why at 3 a.m. does it drop by 10 degrees? And then you find out that some weird shit's happening where there's a vent in your AC blowing on it. You just never know. It's those little things.
Yeah, and especially in a home grow where it's not a facility built specifically for growing a plant in. A lot of times you're ended up in a basement or an upstairs closet, which is two extremes, and I've been in both of those situations. My grow right now is in my basement, but it's a room that I have environmentally control. I have the basement is the lung room. That's a term that I think that a lot of home growers should familiarize themselves with. Is controlling the environment immediately around your grow tent, right? So if you have a buffer, if it's not just trying so hard, struggling inside that tent to combat the room that it's in, that's another level of control, another layer of controls on there. So look into a lung room, get your environment dialed in before you even get a plant in the tent, and I think that's a huge thing that's very obvious for the commercial side is they'll have maybe, a week or two up and running before a plant ever sees the room to make sure you're not finding out about that 20-degree temperature swing at 3 a.m. that's going to cost them potentially, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So in the home grower, it's not as detrimental financially, but if it's going to destroy your joy, if it's going to take away your drive to do another grow, I think that's horrible. I hate seeing the grow kits for sale on Craigslist, like lightly used, like, fucking poor guy, it's
lightly used.
Yeah, lightly used. Sorry to hear that.
Everything that's had problems says lightly used.
Yeah.
First Smoke family, Promix is storming the cocoa market, and they're one of the few companies integrating mycorrhizae and bacillus into their loose core products. You can expect the same level of consistency, quality in their full core line. What's cool is Promix is one of the few companies in the market to integrate active ingredients directly into the products. In the US, their loose fill products contain mycorrhizae, while in Canada, they include both mycorrhizae and bacillus. This means you're getting products that will help maximize your plant's full potential, ensuring to always reach your highest level. And if you're looking to get your hands on some of the brand new drops of Promix with the bacillus, with the mycorrhizae, go to pthorticulture.com or go to the Promix Instagram and their socials to get connected so you don't miss the brand new drops. Consistency, Promix.
But it's such, I feel like if you can dial it in, and there's certain growers that I like to watch, like you, and that's why I bring this up, because it doesn't feel like a home grow the way you do it.
Well, and it's because I have had a little bit of experience on both sides of the fence. And so we moved, we were out in Rhode Island. I was a caregiver in Rhode Island there for a minute. That's a totally crazy scene. I don't know how it's
changed
in the last 10
dive
years.
Into it. Talk about what's Rhode Island scene like.
Moved out to Rhode Island, got my medical card, joined a compassion center. So they linked up patients with caregivers, and you were able to buy directly from the caregiver, right? Reimburse the caregiver, kind of the gray area at that time. So we had and this is a term that I hadn't heard until a couple of years ago, the trap. The trap was like, apparently we had a trap house in Rhode Island, so we're able to sell to the dispensaries at the time with a medical card. It was still back in the glory days where you didn't have to have a commercially licensed facility to sell. So they would buy 6 ounce minimums, right? So there were 3 dispensaries in the state of Rhode Island. You had to choose 2 of them. When you got your card, you could designate 2 of the 3, closest one to your house, closest one to home. It was a big deal. It was like all, super expensive, $60 for light 8s. So there was a definite need at that time and space for patient access to, quality medicine for medicinal purposes. And I can fully acknowledge the smoke a joint at night for fun, recreational side of things, 100%, but it also does have a huge medicinal value for certain individuals. And I think it's unfair to force those individuals to shop in the same market as this, I want to go grab a bag or go grab an eighth for the weekend crowd.
It is 2 different buyers,
which is fine. There should be a market and opportunity for both of those. But at the time we were really trying to give patients access to $100 ounces for really nice flower. That was kind of the group's agreement to what we would accept for our reimbursement, right? So everybody agreed $100 ounces. So it didn't matter what grower you went with, you were getting the same prices. So you weren't necessarily shopping around for it. But there was an issue when we would take care of all of our patients for the month, sell the extra to the dispensary, right? So this is hypothetical, theoretical. I don't want to get into any legal issues about saying this definitely happened. So heard it through the grapevine that the owner of one of the largest dispensaries in town was ex-law enforcement from Providence. And there was a 4 ounce personal possession limit with a medical card at the time. And 1 pound minimum is what they were buying at the dispensaries. So you go into the dispensary. I've got my pound of extra medicine for this month. They say, okay, we'll buy that from you with this post-dated check. And as long as it passes all the testing and stuff, you can cash that on Friday. Then they were being mysteriously arrested for violating the personal possession because, hypothetically, what I hear, the owner
It's like a trap.
was 100%, and then he was selling it and without having to pay the grower for the product.
Oh, Lord.
Right. So that
I hope this ain't true, but
if you know anything about Rhode Island and the mafia connections and the history, it's not far-fetched to believe this was happening.
it's like strong arm, but in like a little bit of an intellectual way.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was kind of a weird situation there. So we kind of broke off our relationship with the dispensaries, and we were going, full compassion, just dealing with the patients. And like the last day I was at the trap house, it was my day to water, and I was in one of the upstairs rooms. We had leased a house, and in the drying room, and I went over to like in wall cabinets and dressers and stuff. I'm not sure what it's called, bureau maybe, but anyway. So I opened up the bureau to get the nutrients and found there was like 10,000 in cash and a bunch of pounds bagged up in the drawers. And I was like, shit, this is getting a little far from our compassion center deal. And then I went outside, and there's like unmarked car at the end of the block, and kind of watching the place. And it kind of all came down to we had blown the top off of this guy's hustle at the dispensary, and now he's got his boys watching our house. And I just kind of tapped out at that point. And I was out. I had my little we were living on a 40-foot main ship, a boat out in Greenwich Bay, and I had an 8-bulb high output T5 lamp button hooked into the front bathroom, the forward head of the boat. In the shower stall, I was growing my 6 plants, right? So I had...
Bro, that is epic to think about that.
It was wild because it was legal in the state, but it was federally illegal. So the Coast Guard was like, saw my game. I would like bring plants out on the front deck of the boat whenever it was nice. And the Coast Guard was just like, bumper to bumper with me, be like, don't leave the dock or you're fucked. Like, you do not leave the dock.
Because then you're in international waters.
Then they were on it, yeah.
Wow.
So I had to went to Home Depot and got like a big utility locker.
You're like grabbing the rope. You're like,
I would put my plants on the dock and lock them up in a big fucking plastic storage tub when we took the boat out in the water. So I would fuck with the Coast Guard.
So the plants would stay, when you wanted to take the boat out, the plants would stay on dock.
Yeah, locked up in the box.
That is hilarious.
It was wild, yeah. So I had it was actually turned out fucking fire. I had a train wreck plant that was in, the old, the 3D plastic kind of air pots. It had like the nipples inside and out. So I had this train wreck that was hanging from the T5 lamp fixture with ratchet hangers hooked into one of the top air holes, and it was like floating. It was just suspended under the light. So like, we get a storm or something, I go in there and have to like sweep dirt up out of the bathroom floor because it would swinging around, knocking dirt out of the container with the ocean. And that plant was actually like 1 foot below sea level, like the way the boat set. So it's like, it was growing like below sea level there for a while. So it was cool. Great experience. Boat was, that was a trip living on a boat for sure. But
you might have the only plant ever grown below sea level.
I don't think that there's too many out there. If there are, yeah, I hadn't seen too many boat growers. There's like in Europe, it's not uncommon. I've seen a lot of European people liveaboards that grow on their boats and in those, the long canal
What's it like?
boats.
What's it like living on a boat?
It's like the smallest apartment you've ever lived in, probably by half.
But being docked, did you feel like you were living on water or no?
Oh, for sure.
You did?
Oh, yeah. So I was like, the first week we moved in, it was like 4th of July weekend. And, is the saloon, like the living room, whatever. So it has blinds, it's like a little room. And the blinds were down. We're sitting there watching TV or something with my wife. And it was like not paying attention, but out of the corner of my eyes, like the blinds are, moving. And I just like didn't think anything about it. And all of a sudden I stood up and I had vertigo so bad, like falling all over myself. So like the first week on board was pretty fucking nauseous, rough. It was seasick, like to the maximum. But after that, it was like no more issue with the seasickness. But, we had I think it was a micro blast. It was like a little mini storm, like really powerful wind front came through. And we were tied. I had us tied up really tight to the dock because it was a little choppy. So I just like really cranked the mooring lines down to keep you steady. And this wind, just hit us. It's like in the middle of the night and just like this 45, 50 mile an hour gust just out of nowhere hit us. And we almost keeled over on the dock because the way the ropes were tied, there was no give, right? So I was tied up and it just hit. And like all the plates, everything fell out and stuff is shattered everywhere in the middle of the night.
You're like, oh
you
yeah,
you get rolled out of bed. You know, you wake up, you're out of bed on the floor, and it's pretty obvious at that point you're living on a boat. Yeah, but it was chill.
And then working at the grow during the day or growing during the day.
Yeah.
And so then you start to realize like, man, this kind of isn't what I signed up for.
Yeah.
Like, where does it start to go from there? Because then you're like, am I going back to Arizona or am I going back to Oklahoma? Like, what's the game plan?
We had moved back from Oregon to Rhode Island to have our first kid. We didn't have really anybody, no support network in Oregon. So we're like, this is overwhelming. Back to Rhode Island. We were just back for a year while this happened. And at the end of that year, I was like, this is kind of getting, I don't want to be involved in it anymore. And my wife is like, the East Coast is like, we lived there originally for almost 6 years and then moved to Oregon for a year, got pregnant, decided to go back. And then we're like, after we had our taste of the Oregon coast, the New England's not for us anymore. We kind of got really comfortable with that sleepy little coastal beach town. So we decided to move back to Lincoln City. I'm out on the central Oregon coast now. I had a sister down in Austin, a brother in Missouri at the time.
You've been all over, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, I was up East Coast, West Coast.
Oh yeah. And it's like, I was up in Alaska for like almost 7 years right after high school. Down in Valdez, working on the pipeline in the oil field and fishing boats. And I kind of
tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I went up there to visit. It was my sophomore year in high school. My mother's best friend had moved up to Valdez, which is where the pipeline from the North Slope, the 800-mile pipeline, they fill the boats there. She worked in the oil field for one of the oil companies. I forget which one. We went up to visit, and I was like, Oklahoma boy, kind of flat plains, the rolling hills of the Ozarks. We were kind of over in the foothills, but holy shit, Alaska! It was like being on a different planet. It touched my soul. So I was like, I had no doubt in my mind. As soon as I graduated high school, I packed up and drove up to Valdez, and just kind of there's tons of backcountry skiing there, fishing. There's something to do all year. So I kind of worked the micro dirty jobs. Like I did all those before there was a show about it, just to doing whatever to be able to ski in the winter situation. Fish.
And Valdez, that's known, like Exxon Valdez, obviously.
There you go. That's where the Prince William Sound is where he ran ashore, and there's still like oil slicks on beaches up there. It's crazy enough,
and that's where some of the best mussels in the world are from, right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy that's also where there's all this oil issues and all there's a lot going on over there.
The best prawns I've ever had down the Caribbean, in Mexico, wherever. Like the prawns in Valdez were crazy, and they were we called them banana prawns. And probably direct relation to the oil place because they had buoys marked off, 300 feet from where those ships tied up to be filled. So the Coast Guard would patrol the inside of those buoy lines, and they were loaded. Like don't come close to the oil tankers. That's where the best shrimping was, right? So you got the shrimp boat guys. They're over there just fucking trading paint with the Coast Guard, trying to get their shrimp pots as far close to the terminal as possible. And they're pulling up banana prawns, called them banana prawns because they were you eat one or two of them, that's a meal. Like they was the size of a banana. They were huge. So I was working on a salmon charter boat, and we would drop shrimp pots and go out and troll for 3 or 4 hours and fish, and then pick up the shrimp pots on the way back into shore. It was a sweet deal, and make a fresh salmon roll for the people that were fishing on the way back in. And people loved that. That was a great way to get a solid tip at the end of the day. It's like making fresh sushi on the back of the boat. Can't go wrong. I did that. I worked at
probably like beautiful existence, right? Like waking up and just feeling like you're really part of nature.
Yeah, it was. And then the other side of that coin is when I was working for Peak Oilfield Service Company. It was like I had my hazmat level 3 certification. And we decontaminated stuff that had been touched by crude oil. Basically, there's like a whole protocol you got to go through. So, we would enter these giant 500,000 barrel crude oil holding tanks, with like full Tyvek taped up gloves and boots and everything, and be in there for do 6 hours at a time, come out for lunch, go back in for another 6 hours. And we would go, it was a 6 to 6 shift. So I was in the tank and basically sealed in this, there's a room about the size of this building attached to the outside of the tank. And you'd go in that room and you wouldn't come out until your shift was over, right? So I didn't see the sun for 4 months there for a stretch, and then you go in before the sun comes up and you're not out until after sunset.
And you're in a tank for hours at a time, in there just cleaning.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We would run these squeegees, they were probably 6 foot wide, big long pole squeegees, and they would open up the top of these tanks and drop huge pumps in the center. And we would just walk from the outside in with these squeegees, like feeding those pumps to like liquefy. You know, you get paraffin wax chunks like the size of this table floating around in there from the crude oil. And the bottom is like basically sandy, silty. So you're like struggling through the muck, and the crude oil itself is like a sludge. And, you know, any picture you've seen of it, it probably feels exactly like you think it would.
And so you're in the basically the bottom part of the tanker.
Yeah, the holding tank that they pump to the tankers from. So the 800-mile pipeline brings the oil down to these big 500,000 barrel holding tanks, and they pump from those holding tanks out to the ship. And they had like 8 of them in a farm, and they'd leave one empty.
Was it ever scary?
All the time.
Really?
100% of the time.
The first thing that comes to my mind was like,
100% of the time.
am I trapped in like drowning in crude oil?
Yeah.
Like that. I feel like I would wake up at night and be like, whoo.
So no, you're in this tank. It's 100 feet tall, 300 feet wide. You know, and if any kind of static discharge goes off in there, you're fucking cooked. You know, so there's like intrinsically safe cell phones only. You had to check your cell phone in at the office. Obviously, no smoking or anything, because like a static charge could cause an explosion in that situation. So super high anxiety.
Oh, you want to talk about a big explosion too? Holy shit!
Yeah, I can't imagine.
So was it a story like, man, 7 years ago, you know, 4 people?
Oh yeah, no, there was.
So it scared the shit out of you going in there.
Yearly. There was accidents yearly. You know, not huge devastating explosions, but you know,
people missing.
There was about a year or so. Whenever we get these tanks cleaned down, you know, when you first enter them. Like I said, you're taped up, you know, Tyvek, everything, double stack respirators on. Basically the only things exposed is like right here on the sides of your neck, and everything else is like taped up, sealed up. So you're just like sweating. You're just a stink pile inside there. There was a couple times I had failures, and just like, you know, at the end of it was like in the shower for like an hour and a half trying to scrub crude oil off myself, you know, just like stained like the upper left side of my body because it'll get a leak or something. And you're just crude oil stained for days and days. And it's a very unique experience, so I'll say that.
First Smoke family, are you a commercial cultivator or retailer and you want to get heavily discounted hydroponic equipment? Grow Generation Pro Portal just launched. The Pro Portal gives you exclusive, heavily discounted access to top-tier hydroponic products direct. It's a one-stop shop for all your hydroponic needs, spanning every category you rely on. Plus, they ensure fast, reliable delivery anywhere in the United States. Need a customized quote? Want to track your spending? The Pro Portal lets you do both, and so much more, including providing easy access to your partners with its cutting-edge features. It's designed to meet the needs of today's fast-paced industry. Ready to take the business to the next level? Go to growgeneration.com and sign up with the Pro Portal today and get hooked up.
First Smoke family, no matter the guest, you know we're rocking Raw and Elements papers. Whether it's the Elements king size wide, the Raw fatties without the crease, so you still get the king size wide, but with unbleached and uncreased. Something we've been loving on the show is the Raw king size blacks, and when we're lighting up, the Phoenix. This is awesome. Flintless residue, windscreen with a poker. No matter what products you like from Raw, you can check out genuineraw.com, and that gets you to all their affiliate links to purchase these products direct from them to make sure they're raw authentic. Genuineraw.com, First Smoke of the Day sent you.
Why go from, because this is what I go to, like that's like next level shit. Why is that just you and your adventurous self? But like, why go from fishing and like, you know, salmon rolls to crude oil?
It actually got flip-flopped. I did the crude oil for the first 2 seasons I got there.
Makes more sense.
Because it was like, because my mother's friend had an inn.
Yeah. And you're like, yo, I'm down. What's
making crazy money, you know. And I'm like a 20-year-old kid, no nothing. We work for 6 weeks and take off for 2 weeks and have plenty of cash in your pocket, have a great time. So it was very appealing to that age.
And you had it in to where they're like, this is what we do. So yeah, come on.
Yeah. It was like you said, it was just an adventure, just like the next thing. I wasn't planning on making a career out of it, but it was a crazy experience. And like I said, when you got those tanks pumped down, like I said, so you go from like total sealed off. And by the time we got done cleaning them, we was walking around with a bottle of 409 and paper towels and kind of like spot cleaning, right?
That clean.
And they would come in with x-ray machines and x-ray all the welds. So that's why I had to clean it, is to inspect the metal, because the crude oil was so corrosive, right? So we were in there. The first tank we got clean, we were in there doing the walkthrough, and the welders started cutting panels out, and it was like distant thunder rumbling. I was like, that was weird. And all of a sudden the floor got a little loose, and like looked down, and whenever they start cutting through the steel plates, there was explosions under the tank. And it was just like these 1 3/4 inch steel plates were like water rippling across there because of just the pockets of gas trapped between, the earth and the steel plate.
And catching.
When they start cutting through those tanks, exploding. But it was, there's no danger to us, I guess. It couldn't breach the tank itself, but holy shit, just everybody walking around there cool as a cucumber, and just like the floor is literally rumbling with explosions under you. So it was definitely a whole experience for sure, but there are not too many people who would make it more than a few seasons. You hit it hard for a few seasons, make a little money, and move on to the next job, because that's not for the faint of heart.
Alaska seems to be like the state of crazy jobs.
Yeah.
Like the more and more you hear all these really wild jobs, like obviously crab fishing, crab king fishing, and like, deep water fishing.
Yeah. Everything is just so extreme there. The weather's extreme. The fucking mountains are extreme. The rivers are extreme. Everything is like to the 10th degree. So if you're going to be a river guide, you're going to be a whitewater biggest river guide in the world. There's not any middle ground. Like everything's super extreme.
What's the weed like out there?
It was great. So Valdez, I've been chasing this smell, since like mid 2000s. Another one of those controversial, Matanuska Thunderf. Is that just like a generic term for like a slang term for the weed that came from the valley? And like the older I get, the more I think that's probably accurate. There probably was a very small group of growers that had something they were calling Matanuska Thunderf there for a while. But then it cuts around and crosses and just keep calling it that because that's what people want. That's what people know. But there was a very unique terpene profile to it. And I just remember I can still smell it. It's fresh. My buddy Eugene had a grow there in Valdez, basement grow. It's like you go downstairs, open the basement door, and pull the big blanket back, and just that Matanuska Thunderf. I'll never forget that smell. And that's what he called it. Like whether or not that's what it was, what was it actually?
What do you remember it as? Like, could you describe
like
it a little bit?
Blue cheese, funky, much sweeter. I think it would be a candy now. Honestly, at that time, that wasn't really being thrown around as.
I was wondering if I'd had the right one, and now it sounds like maybe I have had the right one.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to tell if you've had what people
it was
call
chunky
the original,
buds. The one I had, really big buds.
Yeah,
like I was surprised how big the buds were, and it was all lime green.
Yeah, it
not much color.
No purple. It was all green. Yeah, purple. Yeah, the plants were super squat, super tight internodal spacing, and it was an indica or whatever, for lack of a better descriptor. At
was
that
it
time.
Like pod structure? Like podded or no? It was more nug structure.
Yeah, it was just a nug. It was just stacked stems. It wasn't like golf ball-y, marbly. It was just stacked stems, all big buds.
And so, we haven't, lost to time, huh?
Yeah.
You're getting Matanuska Thunderf out there cleaning, killer tankers, basically shit that can murder you in a second if you don't do your job right. Where does it go from there?
I got a few years older and was like, well, I probably need to change direction from the seasonal work in Valdez. And I moved up to Anchorage and I got a job. My roommates that I had known from Valdez were unioned up. They were union guys. One was in the IBEW, one was in the Carpenters. And they were like, dude, it's a great career path. There's great benefits and, training program. And I was going to the IBEW. So I moved up to Anchorage. I was going to become an electrician. Got a job with ADT Security, doing low voltage security and camera work and stuff. It was going great. I was working there. I had a drive home vehicle, driving the company van home, digging it, and took a week vacation to go back to the OU Texas football game down in Dallas. And, big college rivalry every year. It's a huge deal. Not so much anymore. But at that time, very heated people, fist fighting in the streets because you're wearing the wrong t-shirt. And I love that. Never really got into it with other sports teams, but coming up in Oklahoma, it was kind of unavoidable. You were either, Oklahoma State fan or OU fan, and you kind of full on into it. So I was down in Deep Ellum. It's a big area of Dallas. It's just a bunch of open bar area, kind of fenced in, 21 over area. And that's, big party night. The night before the game, everybody goes to Deep Ellum. And, 30,000 people out and about. And I like back into my ex-girlfriend from high school. Like we back into each other. I was like, hey, what are you doing? How you doing? How's it going? Can I catch up? We just ended up hitting it off. I like fucking called my roommate
on a random trip. Just kind of like, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Called my roommate. I was like, hey, sell my truck and send me half the cash and keep it and clean out my room for me. I stayed in Oklahoma and moved back up to Oklahoma, and we're married now. We got 2 kids, and shout out Michaela. Love you, babe. Thanks for letting me come down.
Did you just know? You just knew.
Oh, right then. Yeah. As soon as I turned around, we locked eyes. It was kind of, we like I said, went to junior prom together and stuff. So we had a history. And I hadn't talked to her in years at the time. But yeah, I turned around, bumped into each other, and I think we both knew, right then. So I moved back to Oklahoma. My mother was a bail bondsman at the time. I started working for her out of Tahlequah, where I grew up.
Still no growing weed yet. This is interesting. You have a crazy life.
Yeah. So it was always on the side, never like able to. And like in Anchorage, we had a little grow that a couple of us chipped in on and stuff, but it was never full time.
But not like your life's passion or like drive yet.
No. It was always like I'd always enjoyed being around it. I always enjoyed growing when I could. Like I said, growing guerrilla style was just a way to make sure we didn't have to smoke brick weed for the winter. I never really sold a lot. Didn't have the instant love for. I mean, I loved growing. I loved the plant, so there was that connection. But I wasn't able to be. Yeah, it was a means to an end at that point. And it wasn't until I got to start spending that hands-on time in the garden. Because, guerrilla days is like, fuck, I'm not going to the plants. There's, you go back and harvest, and hopefully there's a plant to harvest. So being in that shift in legality and the medical market coming, and being able to more openly and more comfortably engage with cannabis totally changed it. Yeah, and then, so that was like 2010. I moved back from Alaska and got married, and then we were growing a little bit, still kind of guerrilla style.
And this is in Texas. Oh, no, in Oklahoma. Yeah, okay,
Oklahoma.
Got you. It's so interesting. I always say, I think construction guys, and I think your background lends to this, they make the best growers. And I don't have that background, but the guys I've been around, the guys that I'm real close to, that are some of my closest friends or my mentor even, so some of my closest people, their background was construction and hard work, like what you were doing, where they're like, no, I used to do diesel trucks. And you're like, Jesus Christ, right?
Yeah,
when they start talking about what they used to do. And what it is it's this combination of, I'm not scared to put in the hard work, teamed up with some technical expertise, like electrical, plumbing, construction, woodworking.
Yeah.
One of my best friends now, his background was like high-end woodworking and construction.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, the construction, but my expertise was like, and he's showing me countertops. But like, then when it translates to grow, you're like, yeah, bro, makes total sense. Like, look at this fucking place. It's a spaceship, you know? I think your background tends also to lend to, look at what you're doing on your Instagram and the grows that you're involved with. Grandmaster LEDs, obviously, I see your hat, and we'll talk about that. But like, what you're doing now from where you came, it makes total sense to me.
Well, like you said, just in the 90s, you can't call an electrician to come over and drop a line for a light in your grow, right? You have to learn how to do that yourself. So I think the necessity for the older generation, or I guess I'm lumped in the older generation because I started
definitely are, big dog.
Before it's like the gray hair agrees with you on that one. But I mean, you just have to dabble, do a little of this, a little of that, and be able to self-sufficient.
Yeah, but you have to have the passion for it, to want to learn it, because not everyone's like, you know what, I could use to learn electrical in my life, and then actually go out, seek out the knowledge, hands-on knowledge, because that's different than book knowledge, obviously, and then be like, yeah, I could wire up my house if I need to, or a panel, or now a facility.
Yeah.
That's a whole, you start to go down this rabbit hole where you acquire this book of knowledge and you just keep adding chapters.
Yeah.
So now you're on chapter 3 or 4 of your life, and you're getting married. When does weed start to come into your life where you're like, I think I want to start growing this shit for real?
Yeah. So we were in, Rhode Island after we got married, 2011. I guess, right.
So you're back on the East Coast again.
So I came from Alaska, moved back to Oklahoma, and that my wife had not quite a year of school left before she was done. So we stayed in Oklahoma for a year, and then after she graduated, we moved to Rhode Island. Right. So we were there for 2010ish to 2014. And I had my didn't have my medical card, and we were bouncing around to apartments. This was right before the medical program. Didn't really know anybody. There was one There's my plug had a basement grow, so I'd like volunteer. Oh, that's nice.
Some cherry pie from the homie Sky High Selects out of Michigan. This is the original cherry pie cut. But there's a couple things. But yeah, I wanted to show you. Keep going. I'm listening to the story. I just wanted you to smell it. So it was too good.
Oh yeah. So we were apartment bouncing and stuff. I didn't have a dedicated place. My plug had a nice little grow in his basement. So I'd go out and hang out and volunteer and be around it as much as I could, you know? And then when we moved to Oregon the first time, the medical program was fresh. I got my card. We had a house. I had a basement, built out a room. And it was like the first time I was like legally by myself on my own little corner, not tagging on somebody else's property or out in the woods. And man, I just remember sitting hours down there with the plants, just chill. It was the first time I had that. It was mine. Here I am. These are just me and my plants here.
Your success is kind of tied together. You kind of feel like we're in this together.
Yeah. And it was a whole different experience being hands-on and having to monitor plant health and like being there to correct deficiencies and do these things. And like started, then fell in love with the process, you know, first thing. And I had made first seeds, like a Jack Herrera cross. And it was, Stony Girl Gardens was had a pit bull seed. There was just like Oregon. I don't even know if it made it out of the state. But it was an indica. I had seen it at the dispensary, you know, it smoked really nice. I bought a pack of the seeds and I remember it was like, 2014, I guess, you know, and open up the seeds, plant the seeds and, you know, do not germinate. This is a novelty. And it was like, it is illegal to, how did they phrase it? Basically breed with their seeds, right? It's like, these are proprietary genetics. We will file charges if you know, it's like,
what seed company?
Yeah. Stony Girl Gardens, I believe.
Okay. Wow.
Stony Girl Gardens out of Oregon.
That's wild.
So I had like, you know, do not use this for reproduction and stuff on there.
Yeah. We'll come after
you.
So
I was like,
shit.
damn, I better not advertise that I'm using this. I might come after this. I just fucking, you know, didn't know. And so I had finally lost those seeds a couple of years ago in a move. But I drug them all over the fucking place with me to, you know, just cause they were the originals. But yeah, and then so had that for
and your wife was cool with it. She's like, yeah, grow together.
Yeah, because it was medical. You know, I had my state issued permit for 6 plants, so stayed in that lane basically, and that was still early on. And I had, you know, teenage years and some of the outdoor crops we'd pulled down, you know, obviously sell a little bit here and there. And we had moved some from other locations and I've always sold bags, you know, I've always been it on the side. And that's kind of always like trying to hit that first legal sale, you know, that was always something that I wanted to do.
Shopping spree begins. Cultivators globally trust Drip Hydro. Whether your nutrient solution is in powder form or liquid form, Drip's got you covered. And you know we treat you like family. First Smoke 10 is the discount code. Whether you're in store or online at driphydro.com, doesn't matter. We get you hooked up. driphydro.com, clean, effective, affordable. Cultivators, under canopy lighting is changing the game. And with that, Faven Under Canopy Lighting. They're one of our premier sponsors, and it's a brand we truly believe in. If you want to check out favenlighting.com, you can get all the answers to what under canopy is and is how it's changing the game. And guess what? You're family, so we hook you up. The code is FSOTD, and you get hooked up with Faven Lighting. They put together a full layout of how you would set your facility or grow room up using their under canopy lighting. Whether you're using CMH, double-ended, fluorescence, LEDs, it doesn't matter. Faven Lighting has you covered. Go to favenlighting.com, use the code FSOTD, get hooked up, and change your grow game. Come on, cultivators.
So back to Rhode Island for a year, grew with the medical group. And then we decided we're going to move back to Oregon, right? So get my family on board. A brother moves up from Missouri. Sister comes up, her family from Austin. We buy 33 acres in Tillamook County, apply for our OLCC commercial production license. You know, we got bought a metal prefab building to put up and got doing the whole 9 yards. And that was fantastic experience. That was an epic farm that didn't quite work out because of the licensing, but just throughout that process, you know, we learned a lot about water rights, agricultural practices in real ag land, not just, you know, of closed cannabis production locations. So we bought this land and it had commercial water rights with it. And, just naivety, we didn't realize that didn't apply to like commercial agriculture production. So we had to have specific agriculture water rights in this area that we were in, because we were in this gorgeous valley. We were like 7 miles inland, total closed off valley, no offshore breezes. In the winter, we kept nice and dry all fall.
So you just knew like this is going to be a prime place for some plants.
It was great, yeah. And one of the first people I'd met, one of the first commercial growers I had buddied up with, had Far Out Farms at the time in Oregon. He's since retired and moved to Costa Rica. Shout out Joel. I'm gonna come see you one day, son.
Dude, I love hearing that story.
Right,
retired, yeah. Costa Rica,
not from weed, from crypto. So it's like,
from crypto.
But he made his nut one way or the other. So,
dude.
He had been at this place for 8 years up in this valley, called it the Banana Belt, and stayed. It was such a sweet setup. We had east-west valley, so we got like all day sun and the water rights. So it was like I could have put a brewery or a water bottling facility or a fucking industrial paint stripping complex and used up to 20,000 gallons of water a day from a commercial well. But I could use 0 gallons from a well for agricultural production, because it was in this Salmon Creek watershed area where they were trying to restore the indigenous salmon population, right? So there was all these water drawing. So all the water rights had already been bought by this one guy who owned like 70% of this valley, and he just had corn. He grew corn to feed to his cattle. So he has cattle at the east end of the valley and had corn planted between him and the road and the highway, basically. So, I'm struggling to find a water source at the time. We had this beautiful spring, this creek that flowed right through the middle of the property. Again, we couldn't touch it because of water conservation laws, right? So it has to originate below ground on your property, flow above ground on your property, and then flow back below ground, all on your property before you be able to use it, right? If it comes out of the side of the hill and flows down to the creek, and that creek flows to the ocean, you can't take that water because that's the salmon's water, right? You're interrupting the flow, the natural flow of that water stream back to the ocean.
But they're saying if it goes up and back down.
So there were, yeah. So
but the reasoning for that is what? That if it goes up and back down, that it's that powerful enough.
It's not going to make it to the ocean.
Yeah.
It's staying on it's your water. You can have that water.
Got
It decided to go back down ground there, right? So
okay.
So now I've got 33 acres, like a 20 acre like hillside. Basically, we got like 10 good flat acres down at the bottom and a pretty good size hill. So for like 2 weeks, I was on my hands and knees crawling 20 acres on the side of this hill, trying to find a spring that came out. Just like I just needed one trickle of water and I could develop it. And we could, we had this big fucking pond dug already. And we were just going to divert that spring to the pond and let the overflow go back down into the spring creek, into the spring channel. In our mind, it's like we're not disrupting the flow. It's just going to be diverted, So
and so you start and you're just looking for wet spots. I'm looking for wet spots. I'm looking for any signs of vigor in life where there would be some type of water underneath where they're growing.
100%. So this old timer turned me on to the skunk cabbage, right? And there was this certain plant that would only grow if there was a spring within X amount of feet from the surface. So I finally found some skunk cabbage growing up in this side of this hill, and sure enough, get up there and tear it up, and it's like soggy ground. I'm like, fuck, yes, here we go. So, dig into the hillside, develop this spring, got, PVC pipes coming off into a 200-gallon holding tank, and that 200-gallon tank fills up and we pump down to the pond, right? So that's our legal out. Like I found our fucking legal water source so we can go ahead with the license approval, right? So I've ended up finding 2 more springs on the side of the hill. And really it was like, a few hundred gallons of water a day, not nearly enough to fill the pond and develop and do what we needed to do for our acreage that we were planning on planting. So we had to be creative with water sourcing. And, after like dealing with this for like 5 or 6 months, we, finally find out and had been talking to the neighbors. And it's like the guy that owns all the farmland up there, he's like straight glyphosate spraying, does overhead pivot sprayers, like with nitrogen fertilizer that's all running off the nitrates and phosphates into the water stream that's like causing all the algae and moss. But he was grandfathered into all this, right? So no rules apply to him. But for the new ag land, the new ag owners and stuff, we got to play ball by all these new rules and laws. So it was almost to the point where we weren't going to be able to proceed just because of we like painted ourselves into a corner with the laws. Finally get the water developed, the springs developed, finally get the pond dug, stocked with fish, do smallmouth bass. I was into aquaponics. We're going to water irrigate from our pond to the field. and we were bootstrapped, you know.
And what's aquaponics for everyone listening, bro?
Just like, so you sea creatures, shrimp, people use all different, mostly fish, you know, fish pond. And then you use the nutrient rich fish water, basically pump it out and replace it with fresh water.
And so the organisms and the kelp and anything else that's growing, including a lot of fish shit, obviously that's probably biggest source. And then that turns into nitrogen, phosphorus,
exactly.
aminos, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, you got the nitrifying bacteria in the water that's turning that into nitrates, which is, you know, feed to the plants.
So this is a full circle. What do you call it? Like, not single source. What would you call this type of farm?
A hybrid. You know, we were in the ground. We did a lot. I top dressed. We did compost.
So techniques from all different places you're grabbing.
Right. And that goes back to like, there's not one way to do it, right? Take bits and pieces of what you know works and apply that to your situation and make it all work for you. So we were doing that, and we had they stopped taking new applications for OLCC licenses in like 2018. And we had gotten ours in, you know, a few months before that cutoff. So we were like, no problem. We're going to get our license. We like cutting it fucking close, but we're going to get it. And, you know, it was just basically the three families, and we're bootstrapping it. We're not taking any investors. We're going to do an outdoor run to pay for the building. We're going to do next year's outdoor run. It's going to put the lights up and finish it off. We got to the point where the OLCC let us know that originally, before the moratorium came in, it was like, you know, call you up, like, hey, we got your application on the desk. We're going to get somebody out to you in like maybe 60 days if that's going to work. They'd come out, inspect your facility. It's a pass or fail. If it fails, here's what you need to fix. Call me when you got it taken care of. I'll be back out and we'll get you up and running.
Oh, that's awesome. Right? That's good then.
They went 180, right? So
so sounds good. Okay.
They went, that was before. So after the moratorium, after they stopped taking new licenses, they had to go through all the licenses that were been submitted, right, legally, but they didn't want to approve any of them. So they just like kept coming up with ways. So basically, after 2 years,
keep moving the hoop.
Yeah. So you can't deny us a license, but you can drag it out forever. So it got to the point, it was like, you know, the end of the winter, hadn't heard anything from them. Like, fuck, we got to pay the bills, you know, we got to pay for the land. It was an income property, you know, none of us could really afford to have a vacation farm in Tillamook County. So it wasn't paying the bills. This was like, right, you know, 2018, the CBD boom, like the CBD oil boom was going fucking off everywhere. We didn't have the acreage prepared to do like a big outdoor run for oil. So I got on and searched up a few companies in Southern Oregon and found a company that was going to offer us a seed production run. Basically, they wanted like 10 million feminized CBD seeds. They were going to give us all the cuttings. They were going to come up and pollinate and harvest. All we had to do was babysit. You know, it was like, fucking sweet. Let's do it. Let's get
almost like a deal to work the land.
Yeah. It wasn't. They wasn't going to make a ton of money, you know, but it was going to pay. It was going to pay for the farm. You know, we're going to be able to get it ourselves set up to really lean into the cannabis production and let it pay for itself and go. So about halfway through the season, this company got bought by a big conglomerate out of Arizona and basically just kind of left us hanging on the contract. So we got 1,000 plants, 4 hoop houses, 1,000 plants that are like, we need to get these pollinated. What are we going to do? So it's like, it was in the in-between, you know, it's not nearly enough to process biomass for oil. No company would take, you know, 1,000 plants. They wanted, you know, trucks and trucks and trucks full of biomass. So we couldn't get anyone to agree to a contract to process it for us. So it was like, fuck it, we'll just sell smokable CBD flower. It was like North Carolina, South Carolina, the East Coast was like selling $50 eighths of CBD flower at the time. So I'm like, we can make this, we can make it work, you know? So we had 1,000 plants, call for my pre-harvest inspection. You know, the state guy comes out, takes samples, and it was real close, you know, 0.3% THC cutoff for the CBD flower, right? So that's nothing. That's none. That's basically nothing. It's next to impossible to grow a cannabis plant with no THC in it, you know. And this, I forget who it was that did a wrote a paper on it in 2019. He went around to all these Anheuser-Busch hop farms and just went on the fucking hop farm and took samples and had them tested, and they were all over 1% THC. You know, so a cousin of cannabis. Especially
when you're trying to have high CBD as well.
All those secondary metabolites are being produced. It's hard to pick and choose. So obviously breeding and the line work to get the CBD as the, you know, the primary secondary metabolite being produced, but there's still THC there. So it was in the window, and I'd never grown CBD for flower before, never grown a CBD plant before, so I didn't know that you needed to harvest it way early to keep that THC down. So I was like, we're walking the field and I got these beautiful flowers, just nice fucking gorgeous plants. You would not be able to tell the difference between a THC plant and these plants. It looked like a weed plant. Beautiful smells, nice full garden, harvest everything. Rented a couple of big 40-foot containers and generators and had dehumes running and stuff. We tested 0.2%. We ended up testing 0.5% THC. So illegal to sell it for smokable flower. So I was like, fuck, we were fucked.
So you basically have weed now. You grew weed. Even though it's CBD
low
genetics,
THC weed, right? Yeah.
Because you're taking the same charge now as a weed charge.
100%. So
because it's over the limit of THC. Wow, that's I've never heard this. It's such a weird place to be in.
Yeah. So 0.2% over, and they sent me these letters like, we need documentation of you destroying this product, or we're going to press federal fucking charges. And
it even goes further than just like you
illegally produced 1,000 plants of high THC or of THC cannabis is what it was.
Basically. And thanks for letting us know.
And thanks for registering that with us and giving us your address.
Holy
and stuff.
Fuck. So what do you do?
We ate it. Fucking nut. It was too small. I had we had like a few hundred pounds of beautiful fucking tops, like gorgeous tops and totes full of tops that just sat there and fucking molded until we got to throw them away.
Yeah.
It was just like, it was not enough. Nobody would do a toll to process it for CBD oil, and ended up, hiring, friends and family came out and we harvested a few hundred pounds of tops and let the bottom 3/4 of the plant, we tilled them back in, for the next season. Because at that time we were like, okay, fuck, it's not the end of the world. We did a good test run, we got these hoops dialed the fuck in.
We know that we could, where these same plants were, if we did it with weed or without it, we got this.
It was a test run. So I was, at that time, I was like, we didn't lose a ton of money, lost a little bit, didn't make any money, which sucked, but I considered it a win. We got all the kinks worked out. We got water. We nailed this crop. If it was THC, it would fucking 10 out of 10, bang, bang.
Yeah, we're hitting 30%
Yeah, exactly.
There's no limit on this thing yet.
Fuck. So anyway, about that winter, a little bit after harvest season, we got in touch. OLCC reached out and like, okay, here we're going to do the facility inspection in 30 days, pass or fail, no second chances. Like, our building's not up. We were bootstrapping it. There was no timeline in the original licensing application, and now we have 30 days. So it would basically have been, we would have had to have built the facility, lights, security, cameras, everything in it for inspection.
Impossible.
And we not only could we not at that time, the time was impossible, but we couldn't have afforded to do it ourselves because, we're planning on, like I said, bootstrapping it. We were so far out away from cable high-speed internet. It was going to cost $90,000 for our camera system because of the amount of storage we had to keep on. 90 days of storage for every single camera on site in case they needed to come and inspect it, right? So $90,000 for just the camera system, and tack on the building, the light, the water, and everything. So financially, we were just unable to do it. It was like, that's just not even an option. The CBD market had gone to shit by that point. We were like, we're not going to be able to do that next year. So we decided to sell the place, and it worked out pretty good. It was the big C word lockdown timing. So there were people trying to bail the fuck out of Portland, and we're like, hey, we got this, water running. So we actually made a little bit of money on the land, kind of eased the tension between the family, everybody, money gets involved, the family, and shit gets stressful, and rightly so. It was a lot of money on the line, but we'd all moved up there and went all in on it.
And hard to explain to them, like, no, listen, the first run, this is what happened. They don't want to hear that shit.
Yeah.
And then and then we could do this, but like, they don't want to hear that shit either.
Yeah.
They want to know, like, dude, I thought your idea, you said we would make money and and it sounds like a good idea. We believe in you. And you're like, dude, things that were out of our control like that, like saying you have 30 days for a building and stuff that just no one building any facilities done in 30 days.
No, never. No, not even if you have a building up and all you have to do is retrofit it out.
Not legally, where it's up to spec.
Yeah, exactly.
It's different when you say, oh, well, I've thrown some lights up and done some plants. We're not talking on the same thing. Where they want fire checks, sprinklers. They want stuff that takes a week or two for them to even come out to even inspect it, to get the approval so just to understand where you were, like you were up against the wall.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as it could have been because it was all the application and legal issues and stuff. So it wasn't like I dropped the ball and fucked up a crop, and now we got to sell the price. So it didn't
They
go
still
down
don't
that
want to
road.
hear that shit.
No,
So
no,
family's tight, and they're like, "Yo, so we got some money back. You guys are." So where do you go from there, though?
So from there, I was like, we had 5 acres in Lincoln City. We were in the county, and I was started trying to get like a micro tier license to produce, and going down that road, and it was just another uphill battle with trying to go legal. Unless you have significant amount of capital available to move around,
That you can prove where it came from as well.
it's tough. It's tough for the bootstrappers. So I have a huge appreciation. So I started. I'd had my basement grow the whole time. I was like taking cuttings and mother plants at the house and doing pollen reversals, trying to make some CBD seeds of our own. So I had a little grow area built out in the basement, and I just kind of started leaning into that. I was like, well, I'm just going to like embrace my place and not lament about not being able to have a huge facility. Which is silver lining, especially in Oregon at that time. I would have been coming into the market as an unknown brand into what was becoming a flooded market. It wasn't quite there at the time. Maybe I would have got in and made the brand recognition name and stayed. But
a lot of big facilities coming online is what you're saying.
Yeah, it would have been
immediately
jumping into the water with a bunch of
and then
big
huge
boys.
CBD farms too, cranking in Oregon. Massive outdoor. Because I follow a few where you're just like, I picture it as like, holy shit, if that was weed, But thank God they're not putting out that much weed. The prices would be swinging.
Yeah, it's wild. And there are some massive canopies down in Southern Oregon for THC cannabis as well. So the indoor will always have its niche. Outdoor can only drop so low per pound. It's like, fuck, it's down there. But
thank God weed goes bad. Like,
you can't just.
I know most people don't want to hear that, but like, thank God, because like 2 years ago's weed, like that price just keeps dropping. Where like at least it keeps that. If you can preserve it for like 10 to 15 years, the fucking market be fucked. So you start to take these hard lessons, which in first smoke of the day terms, everyone listening means good knowledge and moving forward with some grit underneath you.
Yeah. The silver lining, like I said, silver lining was like we didn't get in over our heads and then flounder in a flooded market, but there was always that fucking nagging in the back of my head, always wanted to make legal sale and go legal. And just like, would I have been able to make it in the legal market?
Is that you or is that your parents? Like what makes, cause like some of us do have that drive and then others I talk to, they're like, who gives a fuck? And I'm like, yeah, man, you don't got that in you though, that you just want to be legal.
I've never minded, but it just like, because it was always illegal and I was always selling weed illegally and always under the radar and always hiding from the helicopters and all that shit. I just wanted to make one fucking time like pay taxes on a sale, just for the feeling of finally getting a legal sale. So that bugged me for a while, just not being able to know. And then I entered the Oregon Growers Cup. There's only a few cups in Oregon now, and the other ones are OLCC only. So the Oregon Growers Cup is open to home growers, medical, and OLCC licenses as well. And I entered the Growmaster, and everybody gets the same cut, right? We got Candy Rain this last run, so that kind of levels the playing field right off the bat because everything it's so subjective to the person. Like what I think is a great terpene profile from the next person may not enjoy it at all.
So 20 to 30 different growers get the same exact cut.
The same cut.
And then you all grow it out your style, your room. It's already been tested. It's already been made sure there's no pests on it.
Yeah.
So you get this clean cut, and in 4 months from now, we're going to come back together. Everyone puts their jar of flower in front, and we get to see who's the better grower or who has the best expression, let's say, of this flower in their system.
Yeah. And
because
like
obviously
not necessarily the best grower. Obviously there's hits and misses.
The best expression. That's a better way to put that.
Who can coax out the best genetic expression out of that same cut that everybody got from the same mother. And I was up against all the big OLCC license in the state, and I won that. I won that division. So that was a huge, kind of affirmation for myself. It's like, it sucks I didn't get to go the OLCC route, but I know I can hang with the big dogs, because I proved it.
That's the biggest pull, because like, in my opinion, that type of competition is like standing in front of a bunch of women and pulling your pants down. Like, you're just like, yo, there's a full exposure. Like
100%. Yeah.
Everyone's coming to the table and being like, well, let's see. And some people you're going to be like, well, it's going to expose who really shouldn't be there too 100%, very easily.
Yeah. And you see that in like a lot of competitions, people like, why would you enter that? Did you even trim it? Like, what's your thought process on this whole thing? So I think that there's good competitions, bad competitions, like everything else. It's like a lot lately now. There's a bunch of them now, right? Which is awesome. Like all these regional rosin cups, and everybody's having competitions and celebrating the plant. But it's unfortunate in Oregon because over 10 years since medical went online, everybody's just fucking jaded in Oregon now.
I hate when it goes that way. Colorado's not far off from that either, brother. Yeah. And it's weird because I always say like competitions and stuff. Yeah. Okay. But like festivals, weeds, we need more of that. We need to celebrate each other and the hard work everyone puts in and the strains and the hunting, and then have some fucking fun.
Yeah. That's it too. That's it. And it's like Michigan, New York State now. These huge pop-ups and get-togethers. Everybody's stoked to be there. Still new and exciting. And it's like Oregon and California, Colorado. It's been a grind. People are just fucking cynical as shit at the end of the day, and they're over it. It's just a job that they grind through. And the consumer isn't super excited about it anymore.
You know why? Because neither is the grower, and neither is the hustler, and neither is the hash maker. So why would the consumer be excited if you're not?
Yeah.
If you don't love what you're doing and you don't bring that to the table every time with your designs and your packaging and your love for the plant, why would the consumer be excited about it?
100%. Yeah. And I love the small, farm to table approach that the New York, I've seen that a lot of the farmers market style. And I'd love to see that be legal everywhere, and that would be my dream. It's like, I don't need to sell 1,000 pounds a year. You know what I mean? It's like, I would be very happy just keeping my scale right now and just doing it farmer market style, So I think that there's a long ways to go for home growers, especially. It's like there's states medical that there's no home grows allowed still. And I think that's a travesty. Like not only should everybody just as a citizen of the United States, it should be fucking legal. It's ridiculous. It's not, but it's even more so, I think, ridiculous in these medical states where you don't allow the home grow. And that's like a direct reflection of the, just the incompetency, not the incompetency, just like the gross negligence and greed of the lawmakers, right? That's 100% directly related to the laws being implemented, not the people, the consumers. Like when Oklahoma went online, like I was saying, I went back a couple of times to help a couple of grows get up and running. Like I said, $90,000 for my camera system, right? For our facility that we're going to have in Oregon. And the first couple of years of Oklahoma is just like, there's a barbed wire fence and there's 10 acres of weed on the other side of it. There's no cameras, no building. It was Wild West. There was no security protocols in place, no laws being enforced. It was Wild West. So super frustrating to see that state to state wild law discrepancy. But they fucked up on purpose. I think the out of state money, residency requirements and stuff. Where Oklahoma first went online. You get tons of out-of-state money coming in, and then it just like everybody. They're giving out.
I bet sub 10% was actually people from Oklahoma.
Oh yeah, guaranteed. Yeah. You hear about all the organized crimes licenses down in the southern part of the state, sending up to the East Coast, and it's like Oklahoma didn't have people even going to check these facilities. They didn't have people on the payroll to go and enforce or investigate these laws at all. So I think it's it's tough to complain about it because people are able to like legally have it in their car and shit, and not have to worry about getting arrested. So that's huge. That's
the barrier to entry is low enough where a small time person can get in.
Yeah.
So it's this weird thing of like, yeah, we kind of do want that, but then look what happened when it goes overboard.
Yeah. Every state that I've looked at their laws, and I don't know. I wouldn't be able to write the perfect law myself. You know what I mean?
I like Michigan a lot.
Yeah.
But then everyone's like, Michigan sucks. Michigan sucks because look at what the black market's at, or look at what the prices are at. And it's like, I kind of was like, man, I took that in and thought about it. And I thought, well, I guess if you are launching a rec program where you want everyone to do it legally, if you were to do it successful, it would crush the black market, because then people would just have the option of like, well, I can go to the dispensary. It's an easy purchase and I get it for the same price and damn near the same quality, unless you have a badass home grower, which is always going to be a case here and there, that have a badass brand behind them and know what the fuck they're doing and don't want to go legal. But like, that's the exception to the rule. The rule is like, for the most part, people would rather just go to the dispensary. Yeah. And so if that's done correctly, maybe that is the fucking model, bro.
And I think that's like,
maybe I'm wrong.
No. And I think a lot of the bad experiences I've had with the dispensary is just like the low quality flower at the consumer end.
Oh, it's horrible.
In Oregon, we have there are some pre-packages, but most everything is like open jar, how much you want, and they fill it.
Like deli style, they call it.
So you got, bud tender just come off a cigarette smoke break, takes the jar, gives it the bud tender shake. They open it up and they're holding it for you to smell. And it's like, it's all fucking shaken to shit, dried out, and all I can smell is your
smells
cigarette
like
hands.
cigs and kush. Yeah.
And it's like, fuck, I know in a couple of these situations, like I personally know the owner of this farm. I've been there multiple times. I've seen after it comes out to harvest and dried, it's fucking gorgeous. And so I think a lot of the quality is lost in transition from the farm to the consumer in the rec market, especially if you're at like 6 months. It's been sitting on a shelf in the back in a glass jar for 6 months or whatever.
Well, then also, how do they process shake? Because some places are like, oh, the grower has to buy it back, or we credit it towards the next thing. All this stuff where when you deal with prepackaged, there is no shake. You sell that eighth, it's 3.5 or 3.7, whatever the eighth is. And that's that. There's 128 units and that's your pound.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. It is an interesting system. But then the deli style, everyone swears by and they like it. But I always ask, like, well, how are you handling shake?
Yeah. And just like the freshness, like your jar, you got the seals, you pop the jar, it's a sealed, it hadn't been opened 10,000 times. So, and especially like the glass bottoms, I saw this one, you can check it out. It's still, you see what you get. Yeah, they're all different.
Well, yeah, but then I feel like
fresh,
the rec market wants this.
Yeah.
The black market wants this.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah. No,
for Cali at least, or kind of
I think that like the Los Angeles specifically is, ahead of that curve, or it starts the curve. But fucking it's catching on everywhere else because of LA.
My bad. I was completely wrong. My bad. I think I'm literally stoned, bro. I'm smoking these hash holes and we're having a deep convo. I think the black market wants bags because they can move around with them. They're easy to transport. They don't weigh anything. Yeah. They're used to kind of the bag thing. Even think about buying weed at the homie bags.
Ziploc,
I think I'm starting to see more with rec that state to state, people are like, oh, I really like jars. I like jars. And then I'm talking to homies who were doing bags, and then I'm talking about their sales with jars, and they're like, doing better. And I'm like, really? And for the last couple of years, last 2 or 3 years, I would have said the opposite. I was like, bags are booming.
Yeah.
At least here in our little bubble in Cali, right? But as I move around, then I also talk to other markets and I see people testing both in the same marketplace, but kind of like, oh, we're doing jars, and I'm seeing it work really well.
Nice.
Yeah, but the market's evolving.
Yeah, it always daily, right? It's crazy, and it's a good thing. Like I think stagnation is going to kill it. Like, it's got to be making advances and people pushing kind of the marketing.
Yeah,
it's evolving. It's fluid. It's not a set state for sure.
How does that get to where you're at now and what you're up to?
Yeah, so we're fucking. I've got to come on a couple of these trips and experiences, and it's like a series of, connected random events that have gotten me here. And I think that there's, I know I'm not a special situation. There's tons of people out there that are passionate, work hard, try to do everything. They just don't kind of hit it right or hit the right experiences and situations. I bought a pack of photo period seeds and got free Autoflower seeds with it, and just kind of grew them on a whim, not much effort. You just kind of let them do their thing in a 30-gallon bag I just harvested out of. Did like really light reamendment, watered only. Just about a week before harvest, I had heard one of my buddies was like, hey, there's an Autoflower event up in Washington State. You should go check it out. I was like, fuck, I'm about to harvest an Autoflower plant. I'll just like enter it, and ended up winning that deal. And it was the first Autoflower I had grown, and kind of connected with that crowd and really excited. It's like the Autoflowers, like they got a bad rap. I did a low rider because it worked paired well with guerrilla style, small, fast finishing plants, stay hidden outside.
What's the point of an Autoflower for people listening, growers, if they're like not too familiar with it?
Yeah. So years ago, I think the idea was to be able to have something that finished super fast, stayed small for like guerrilla style outdoor. You could plant it in obvious areas, right, and harvest it, and it would beat the winter weather. It would
finish under the fence line, I guess you would kind of call it, right?
Yes, exactly. You could plant it next to your neighbor's fence, and they wouldn't be able to see it over the side. So I think that the fast finishing and closet growers, like keeping it small and real quick, low key under the radar.
You don't have to worry about seasonal changes and how many hours of day you have sunlight.
It's not going to re-veg on you.
Put that mother out.
Yeah, so it's like independent of the photo. The length of the photo period. So you run lights 24 hours a day, and it's going to go through its flower cycle, right? So that's kind of what drew me into them was like, I like to pheno hunt, always growing from seed. I rarely take cuttings and rerun stuff. I don't remember the last monocrop I did was Blue Dream in Rhode Island. And that was the last time I did a monocrop. I like variety, always popping seed. So, if you start a photo period seed, it's, 50, 60 days before you're going to want to flower that. You got to, grow it up, take a cutting. If you're going to hold a cutting back, sex it, let it develop. And I was like, well, I'm able to harvest autoflowers in like 63, 70 days. Some of these.
There is no vegging in autoflower.
They just go, no. Yeah,
you plant the seed as soon as it sprouts and hits a certain 3 inches or 6 inches up or whatever, it starts to go.
Yeah, like 21 days. Or people say if you leave it in a smaller container, when the taproot hits the bottom and starts to coil, it'll trigger the flowering. But if you put it in a larger size pot, it'll be like 21, 28 days, and it'll flower, do its thing. So that made sense for me, just from a standpoint of starting them at the same time as my photo periods. And I've got my photo run getting ready to switch to 12-12 to flower, and I'm getting ready to harvest the autoflowers. They can finish a week or so under the 12-12 and not have any, weight loss. You're not running them under 12 hours.
But why do they get a bad rap?
The potency, the ruderalis and the origins were from a very, very low THC species.
But there's high terpenes on a lot of these.
Super high,
so there's some really good flavors. And there's a wax company, and I don't want to throw shade. People are like, name them out. I'm not going to name them out because I don't want a lawsuit. But there's a big BHO wax company in Cali, and that's what they run their full farms of. And it's one of the biggest of all of them. But
straight autos.
Yeah, the whole thing is autos. And I could tell by just, they take videos of their farm and you're like, oh yeah, you could spot it like that.
Yeah.
It's like, how does that grow? It looks like nugs growing out of the ground, basically.
Yeah.
And then when you see all the hoop houses, just hundreds and hundreds, and then it all goes to dabbable products and vape pens. But people would always say like, everything kind of tastes the same. Or they would say like, it has a very quick high.
Yeah.
The high is very like up and then right back down. And it's like, oh yeah, because there's not long lasting THC, the terpenes, everything's a little bit shifted. So it does get a bad rap for a little bit of would you say like a correct reason?
Yeah. So not so much anymore. For sure. 5 years ago, even 5 years ago, it was like, I can taste the ruderalis. I heard that a lot, and I can see where that is, because
what would that taste like?
It's hard to describe. It's distinct. It's a distinct, like all the autoflowers kind of had that little kind of taste on the back end.
Kind of like what CBD used to taste like, where you would taste like that weird orangey.
Yeah, kind of just like not quite chemically, but like just something very distinct about it.
You're like, oh, this is CBD flower? You know immediately if someone passes it to you.
100%. But it's come a long way. Like I say, now that it's like the genetic expressions are getting better, but I think that was just because of the selection process, right? So same thing with even like we're talking about genetic bottlenecks in our photo period stuff now, and everything's cookie or candy, and like where's all the old school, like it's all gone because of that. If you're selecting only for THC production and fast flowering, photo period plants, you're going to really limit that genetic expression of the plants. And it's like if you cross a Lamborghini and a Ferrari, you're going to get a fast car. And I kind of feel like that's almost to the point we've gotten now with the polyhybrids. It's like we have selected so distinctly that we've really narrowed our road down. So that kind of that was similar with the autoflowers. It's like, well, you got to have the ruderalis, like that's the whole autoflower, and then so you have to select for that. So that's always going to be there, right? So then you start trying to do the line work on them, which is tough because. My buddy Dan Jimmy, No Automatics is the only autoflowers that I'll grow are from him. He does line work. He's been doing it for a while, and he does it properly. And you can't take a clone back and see which one does better. So the breeding process is totally different in the autoflowers because it's gone. It's going. It's going to complete its life cycle. You can take a cutting, but you can't get it to re-veg. It'll just root and finish flowering.
I have a breeder coming on who does autoflowers. I haven't heard of. I just know about him. 707 Seed Bank.
Oh yeah.
And so 707 grows. My bad. 707 grows.
Okay.
And I'm interested to hear about how to breed autos. But yeah, keep going.
It's the same thing. You can reverse a female for feminized pollen, but the timing's differently. So just the selection process is a bit different because you're on a clock, right? So you can't hold this cutting back and then pollinate it if it's the winter. You got to pollinate a bunch. then kind of make the selection afterwards.
And your keepers are seeds. It's not a clone only. So it's this, it gets real interesting when you start to kind of work back.
Yeah. But
how did you get that one? Like the chicken before the egg thing?
Yeah.
And keep going that way?
Yeah. You got to just, and that's something that like a huge turnoff for a lot of people is not being able to take a cutting. It's like, well, what if it's the best flower I've ever smoked? It's like, pop more seeds.
You get to wave to it as it passes you by and keeps going.
Enjoy that experience because it's a unique one in a lifetime experience.
So you're exposed though. I love this because your journey, for everyone listening, like your journey is now you keep getting exposed to these different styles of grows, we go from CBD, we talked about hemp, we're talking about cannabis now, outdoor, indoor, greenhouse, autoflower, right? Like this adds to your repertoire of what you see now when I watch you. You know what you're up to.
And I just like, it's like, I enjoy it all. It's like, I don't want to, dedicate myself to one tiny little aspect of it. There's so much to enjoy. And it's like, and I always tell people, it's like, try autos out, throw them in your room to like on the floor to soak up light, getting through the canopy. Don't dedicate your whole life to them necessarily, but like everything else, like just try it here and there, see if it works for you.
I think if you're going to have if I was going to recommend my parents, tell me if I'm off. Like, yo, dad, grow some plants. Or my dad's like, I want to grow a few plants out by the pool deck or something that, where they just want something. And they're not like connoisseur smokers. So they don't want super, this is perfect for you.
Easy. The light schedule doesn't matter. You're not going to have to feed them, water. You put them in some decent soil, give them some water.
Lower chance of having issues like botrytis and PM because that short flowering cycle that it's going through.
Yeah.
Like, so you can grow it in various environments and have
northern latitude,
higher level of success. Let's say
northern latitudes love them because, you can, and I've seen a lot of commercial production instead of, first year putting up hoops for light depth, plant a field of autoflowers, zero infrastructure required. You don't need to cover them. They're going to be done. Use that to pay for your hoop next season.
Interesting.
So there's commercial applications for them. There's home grower applications for them. And like I said, it's not my favorite commit all the way, switch over to it, but it's like, don't rule it out. It's a tool in the toolbox. It's fun to play with. And it's just another kind of aspect of growing, I think.
I think that's an interesting lesson for you though. And maybe I'm going to get all the CBD guys in my DMs though, to think that though, to say that you took the plant to its full potential and it tested over the THC limit. It just makes me, it kills me to think that like I knew guys growing super high end indoor CBD in downtown LA.
Oh, nice.
They had converted a regular cannabis grow to a CBD grow. And they were like, yo, we're doing drops on our website, shipping it to every single state. And they're selling it at 50 and 8th all the way up.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we do free shipping, and they're selling out 50-pound drops. When it drops, 2 hours, boom. Hey, we're sold out of our 50-pound drop. I'm like, dude, you can't even, most people aren't doing that here in Cali. Some of the top rec brands are selling 50 pounds in one drop in 2 hours. And all the shops are, he's like,
wild, yeah.
So that flipped me out though, where he's like, when the cops can come through, fire department, whatever they want, this is a CBD grow. And I'm like, and they showed the barrier to entry being so much lower. Licensing is what? Damn near nothing.
Yeah.
And so you start to realize like, damn, there's maybe a play here, but that's the interesting part is that as the grower, you would start to chase down the best. I want my OG CBD genetic. I want all these different flavor profiles. You can't get over 0.3 THC.
It's wild. Yeah.
That is a low number.
And that may be, that may have changed. This was, 2018 Farm Bill.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they've modified it now with the THCA and
but taking it to full harvest, that's a low number to try to stay under if you're trying to get high quality final product.
Yeah, no, it really is. Yeah. It's just trying to jack one of the secondary metabolites. It's hard to control which one's limited. And
it's like THCA. They're like, test it at week 3.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, no shit. It's testing very low THC at week 3. You're like, yeah, there's nothing there. It's a sprout of a nug.
Yeah, there you go.
But
it's passed though. It passed its pre-harvest testing.
Come on. Test it now. It's a leaf. You can juice it. So you start to go through just absolute beautiful repertoire of learning in this crazy industry on cultivation and selling product and what's selling as the market's doing this up, down, all over.
Yeah.
So where are you now with it?
Now I'm just really lean into the home grow, just education, reach out. I'm working with Grandmaster LED. One of the cool things about social media has been so bittersweet, I guess, a love-hate relationship the last few years. It's getting tough. Can't say even the word flower on Instagram and your fucking account's shut down. So it's very frustrating. But one of the really cool things about having some of the success on social media is being exposed to these companies and getting to work with companies, getting to do shows like this. And
look at Miami Mango.
100%. Yeah.
He's like the poster boy, in my opinion, just because he's the closest for like putting on for a company, building something. And then now it's like damn near his whole persona, and makes, millions of dollars allegedly off of that. And it's like, I love what you're doing, because it's like you're trial and error. You're a side-by-side guy.
Yeah.
I love it, dude.
Yeah.
I love that.
Everybody's a breeder now. The breeders and pollen chuckers, I think, is worth touching on a little bit too, because like I said, I made my first seeds in 2014, I guess, my first purposeful cross. And I think that every home grower should make their own seeds. You can be there's nothing wrong with being a pollen chucker. You don't have to do a big selection process. Being self-sufficient and making seeds to grow for next season is part of humanity, core part of humanity. Any kind of farmer or gardener does that same principle. So a cannabis grower should be the same. You should make some seeds. Just, it's fun. It's rewarding. Don't necessarily need to sell a 10-pack for $250 that's never been grown out or tested or anything. And you see, these menus come out. It's like,
or literally
14.
say on it, these have never been tested. These have never been this, and they're $250. So let me know. Like, at least be transparent if you are going to do that.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Not to say that that's the right thing. People would be like, look, he said it's the right thing to do. No. I'm just saying, if you are going to do that, at least be transparent so people know what they're getting into. Afrogenetics had a great saying. He says, steal my money, but don't steal my time.
Yeah.
He said, I'll let you steal my money, like buying the pack or like wasting, hustling me, but like, don't steal my time.
Can't replace that time.
And I was like, oh, wow, that's powerful. The years of now that coming back into my life.
The breeding, I really have fallen in love with the last 4 or 5 years, being able to, like I said, so always popping seeds, always pheno hunting. Got half a dozen keepers that I really liked over this last couple of years, and they're in the OLCC market now. I won't say what garden's running them, just for
Can you give us the strain names?
Yeah, there's a couple from Purple Capers up in the Bay. He's a Bay Area breeder. The Cookie OG, the Skunk Lady. There's an heirloom Jack Herrera from up in Washington State that I've came across. I kept it for a while. It's back in rotation.
Is that different than the J1?
Yeah. So
can you explain that a little bit? Because I try to explain that to people.
It's like even like the XJ13. I don't know if I saw one of those. We were talking about it earlier. So there's a lot of I didn't realize how many Jack haters there were out there. It's like, holy shit, people do not like terpinolene.
Well, and then I asked, which Jack have you had? Because there's like 3 or 4 I've had that I also don't like. But so then there's the real Jack I do like.
I don't care for the J1.
I don't either.
A real Jack Herrera, though, is hard to beat for me. Like and I think, and again, that go back to like, it's so subjective person to person, like your own, chemistry and metabolism and how you're wired in your brain and how that's
what year you were born almost even.
Yeah. So it's like for the, people like Jack Herrera does nothing for me when you smoke it. I get that a lot from people. And it's like, well, shit, maybe you're just ADHD and it's leveling you out. Or, it's like, maybe that's how you're supposed to feel.
Go look in the mirror.
Yeah. So I get that a lot. But it's like, so everything's so subjective. And the one thing I do notice, like, no matter what state I'm in, rec market, legacy market, like there's always going to be like the next one, right? Then whatever's hyping right now. But like, dude, I could sell White Widow every day of the week, any state in the country. You know what I mean? Like I've got,
what about Blue Dream?
Blue Dream. I would not touch that with a 10-foot fucking pole.
What about Green Crack?
You could sell Blue Dream and it's coming back. It was a great one, but like that was, like I said, that was all that we grew in Rhode Island, and I consume so fucking much of it. Like if I smell it now, I get like cold sweat.
It's weird though, but with White Widow, we haven't had enough of it to burn it out really. So it's still like,
it's always been that elusively.
Give it to us. Yeah. Certain ones still have that.
Yeah.
Sour Diesel right now, everyone's hunting it down. Yeah. They want it again.
Yeah.
They didn't get enough of it the first round.
The Diesel, and a lot of that stuff is like what I consider the old school, and what I consider old school is like how many new consumers have just started, in the last 5 years. It's like, it's not old school for them. It's a totally new experience that they've never had before.
I'm talking to Masonic and I'm like, what do you Sour Diesel this? Cause I came up with it and I'm just assuming cause we kind of are around the same age. And I realized, oh no, he's one generation below that. He never saw that wave. That was a wave that was big for us, for me at 42 now.
Yeah.
they're, he's in their early 30s or late 20s. It's like, oh yeah, that 10-year gap, that's the gap. Yeah. That's sour diesel being gone.
So that's what I'm trying to lean into, that, finding those people that have had that cutting for 10 years. They're out there. Some of the old school genetics always come. The old school is always relevant, I feel like, and a couple of.
So you do collab projects?
Oh yeah. I did for like Purple Caper, just released seeds through Skunk Magazine and North Atlantic Seed Bank here with Frank. I did a run with him, and Alien Technology reversal for a pollen donor, and had some bangers. That's my bed right now. I was hoping my harvest is probably 7 or 8 days out. I was hoping to have some fresh flower to bring to you.
Alien Technology, I remember them. Yeah, I was trying to think of a few Bubba Lee or something. I had a few of their crosses. I still do a bunch of stuff from them.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be getting a Death Bubba cutting coming down from north of the border here soon. So hopefully that comes through. Fucking send it, bud. Send it.
Man, last time I saw that like espresso mothball Bubba, where there's like more leaves than nug. There's like this little nug, but tons of huge indica looking leaves. And once you pluck that though, and those little golf balls. Woo,
oh yeah.
People call it platinum Bubba. I remember.
Oh, the platinum Bubba. Yeah, I never came across. I heard that one. I never had it. It was nice. But
it's just like smoking espresso and mothballs.
Yeah.
But like the Clorox bleach, just like this weird combo of flavors. And everyone was like, well, I remember mine was more like this. It was like, yeah, because the grower probably did it like that. But like what we were getting when we would get the brick of literally like you'd pull out the whole pound because it had been sealed just tight enough and the outside nugs would almost like flatten where it would look like shimmering, almost like the outside of the pea
like
would
get pellicle seals it in, just like wax,
and it like kind of flattens some of the crystals, so now it's like one little mirror of crystals. So when you pull that pea out, that top layer would be glistening, and people would, you'd be like, bruh, it landed, we made it, but yeah, that Bubba would be something to bring back that a lot of people haven't had, because that pre-98 and some of the other shit I've had is like, yo, this ain't it. What's this?
The pre-98's not there, and I think those are going to be doing well in the next couple of years because it hits both sides of the market. It's like, it's the old school, old heads. It's a trip down memory lane for them. For the new crowd, it's like, what, I haven't had this before. So you're covering, you're checking all the boxes with those.
You're right with that.
So I think those are going to be becoming huge in the next couple of years, but like finding the building blocks, it's like, where do we start? Are they gone? Like who has them? What do we do? I've been doing some Landrace hybrids because I think that's, you go back to the 90s, it was always like an Affy, a Thai, and a Columbia 3-way, so a lot of our backbone varietals that we have used to create these lines now, it also goes back to a few different Landrace combinations, right? So I'm like, let's go back. Let's just take it. Let's just hit the reset button. And there's not too many people that are willing to do the line work. 10 years, you commit a decade of your life. You know what I mean? To like seriously bring a project to many generations.
Most people can't do that with their passion.
No,
with the thing they're passionate about, they can't say 10 years. I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah.
And so to do that on something that they're unsure if they're even going to enjoy when they get down that road, or that like, there might be a year or two where you're like, yeah, I'm doing the work and I'm having fun, but there's not the results you're looking for yet. Or, oh man, that's a lot to ask, bro. And I'm not condoning it. I'm not saying like, oh yeah, that's why he's not this. I love people that do that. I congratulate them here but that's why there's only 1% of people that do it.
Yeah.
Of breeders.
So that's where, I've done, released the project I did with Frank because he pulled everything out of tissue culture. There's no pheno hunting involved. We're producing seeds that are going to perform well, so and those were released. Other than that, a couple of small projects I've let go, but other than that, it's like, I've been doing a little line work for a few years, making selections, and still not comfortable releasing it, And so I think that once I get what I have where I want it to go, it's going to be unique. It's not going to be like, you're not going to be able to like, it smells like this or this or that. It's like, shit, I haven't come across this before.
It's its own thing.
It is its own thing. And it's hard to make those, because, like even right now I have the Northern India Wycheen Valley male Landrace. I had pollen donor That was a crazy fucking plant to try to grow. I cut it in half 3 times inside. It just kept, it would have been 30 feet tall outside,
A lot of internode spacing between.
So much.
Yeah. Okay.
So much. So I crossed that to Capillator, the Mac V2, and polar opposite, right? It's fucking tight ass, fucking beautiful resinous modern. It's like a modern commercial.
Brings a lot to the table.
It's a great one, So you take those 2 polar opposites and throw them together and start hunting through those and find the right combination of those expressions. Unfortunately, the ones I have right now are not the right combinations of those expressions. It was probably an equal, dominant traits equally from each donor. So you got these just not much internodal spacing, but very slender flowers that are just like 3 feet long. And it's not quite like Grinspoon Calyx's stacks, but it's like wispy little foxtaily light flowers. I'm sure it'll be one of those, forehead sweat, euphoric smokes. It'll be fantastic, but
almost like a haze.
Yeah,
like a pith or like a power plant.
Not even like that. Just like a Grinspoon, Dr. Grinspoon, just like calyx stacks, almost like bunches of those foxtailed out.
Oh, interesting. Okay, hash plant almost.
It's a beautiful structure, very unique, super fucking frosty. I'm sure it would wash really well, but it's like nobody wants to grow that. You can't dedicate the space in a facility to do that. Home growers need to have enough to get them to the next harvest. You can't. One plant taking up a 4x4 and yielding 2 ounces ain't gonna fucking cut it.
No, the things we remember and love, we want to hybridize to actually be able to grow. Like even the 88 G13 hash plant, you're seeing it as a cross with hash plant, not the hash plant by itself, because that thing had the one that we remember had no flavor and almost no smell other than like it smells hashy or like crystally, but like unbelievable crystal content, calyx, and just unique plant. But
I'm running into that right now with I have 4 of the LA Confidential alien technology crosses going right now in the bed. And a couple of them are like that hash plant. It's like leafy, bright green, super stacked, rock hard, just almost dripping THC, not much nose. It's like smells like hash plant. What you would think the hash plant.
And so you're like crystal production insane. Like the resin is on another level, and the production of resin, and maybe even the growth structure of the plant. It starts checking all these boxes, but then you're like, yeah, there's no flavor. If you go 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks after harvest, it probably goes
way down. Yeah. Unfortunately, so just trying to find the combination. It's always hunting for that winning combination of the terpene.
What's been one of your favorite thing or two that you've produced that you're like super proud of?
So right now the Blood Diamond line, it's like acrid, chemical, burnt rubber, not quite, I won't say the S word, it's not there yet. And like that stirs up so much fucking controversy, people hunting for that. So,
but if I'm looking for burn your nose rubber terps,
that's it. It's
really,
right there.
Man, I've been looking for that nonstop.
The Alien Diamond, I'll send you a pack of beans, and I think you'll be very happy with those.
We've been trying to find that. That's people been asking in Cali, like, yo, what's up with that OG? Everyone's hunting OGs, but they can't find the right one. It's because they're all kind of earthy or sweet. No one's finding that gas OG yet, and a couple people are holding the cuts, but
this is one of the most like acrid, gassy gas that I've come across in years. I'm super stoked on it. And not only that, it's like the leaf to calyx ratio for the flower is a trimmer's fucking dream. It produces not much stem showing, great internodal spacing, everything. It checks all the boxes, it produced, it stretched real nice, developed out. And like I said, not much internodal spacing, not much stem, phenomenal plant. I'm going to do, we're talking about trying to do a monocrop of it. Like I said, it's so hard for me to do a monocrop because I've always got more seeds to pop. So that is one that's tempting. From Frank up at Purple Caper in San Francisco, his Girl Scout cookies by OG Kush, the Cookie OG, is one of my top 5 of all time. It's like not much the cookie structure and secondary metabolite production with the OG nose. It's a winner. And that's the mother I used to make the Hindu Kush Baharak, so Northern Affy Landrace crossed to that Cookie OG, and got a bed of those going right now. And those, if they smoke nice, they're going to be around. I've got cuts of those held back, and the cushness is just, it's real nice. So
where are your seeds available at?
I've got a website I'm launching, florofarmgenetics.com. Maybe, I don't know how far the show out launches, but hopefully the next week I'll have it.
So let me bring that up. FSOTD.com for everyone listening. If you want this podcast within 2 to 3 weeks of it airing and you giving us the thumbs up and us getting the graphics together and pulling some clips, right? FSOTD.com, all these podcasts drop. And then 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks later, we drop them publicly on YouTube, Spotify, right? In order. Yeah. People are always like, just drop it. No. Listen, every Monday you can guarantee, just like anything your favorite show's on. That's just our recipe.
So,
but like, if you want it early and you want it like where 3 of them come through on a weekend, and they just start to, as soon as they're ready, they just get uploaded on the website. It's FSOTD.com. We're redoing the website right now, but yeah, this will come out this will come out in like 8 weeks, 9 weeks.
Yeah, I'll have the website launched. So Floro Farm genetics, I'll have hop latent viroid tested clean cuttings and seeds available on the website.
Dude, that's fire. Cause I think a lot of those terps you're talking about, that's what a lot of people have been asking me for. Bring back the gas right here, bro.
Yeah, it really is. And it's like, I've got the cutting out into a few people's hands to get that confirmed and validated. One person saying their seeds like produces exactly what you want is hard to believe. Good marketing pitch, but get some flower out to the community, get some people on board. That's the way it should be done.
So what can they look forward to right now? Like what's upcoming? What's some stuff like, man, I can't wait to see what Grandmaster's doing. What's up?
There's a lot coming down the pipeline for Grandmaster. We've been doing the spectrum tuning for the last couple of years, under canopy lights, and the Predator under canopy IPM lights. They're all really kind of building momentum right now. So
explain that real quick, because you can't move past that.
Oh yeah, so I'll just like touch on the spectrum tuning. So we got a few different models of spectrum tuning from 4-channel to 2-channel. So we give the 2-channel is basically like an HPS channel and a metal halide channel. So you can veg, flower, combo that. You can add a little of each to still get some of the spectrum tuning, adding in the blue. And what we're seeing is, running a metal halide for the first 2 weeks of flower to keep the stretch down, right? So you're able to get the blue, utilize the blue for the first 2 weeks of flower, keep your internodal spacing tight, switch it over to the HPS spectrum for bulking the majority of flowering, then finish it off with that blue dominant. And there's papers coming out showing that the last week or so, flower really increases the secondary metabolite production across the board by adding that blue light.
So going from blue to red to blue.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So there's that. Basically, like the transcendent recipe is there's a couple of commercial facilities up in Canada that have really have had, I want to say 12 or 14 monocrops run. And I forget what the variety is that they run, but that's all they do for it's they do I think for extracts, but anyway, so they have 3 runs now with the transcendent recipe, and they increased their the terpenes, all the secondary metabolites were increased by 30% minimum by implementing these spectrum changes, and implementing far red. And then I have been doing so with our controller, you got 20 event changes a day for the controller. So you can start off with far red and the Emerson effect. The lights come on with like a red dominant spectrum, slowly start to increase the intensity of the lights, like to mimic sunrise and sun coming up. Slowly add in blue. So I peak intensity for 3 hours in the middle of the afternoon, where it's like that hardcore overhead sun beating you you get your 3 hours of peak intensity. After that, you start taking the blue back out of the spectrum, end up with a red dominant spectrum for sunset, and then finish up with the Emerson effect after that to put them to sleep faster, right?
So when we talk changing light spectrum, it's throughout the full day process, not the actual bloom process, like week to week.
Well, so there's a few different approaches. So the transcendent recipe is basically a week to week. So you're setting it, and I'm dabbling in the day. So changing that ratio throughout the 8-week flowering cycle of the red dominance, but also changing it throughout the day to mimic the spectral shift throughout the day from sunrise, peak intensity, and sunset.
And this can all be done in Grandmaster. So if I buy Grandmaster LEDs, I can either copy what you're doing, I'm guessing. Yeah. You give the formula out, or I can ask for it or buy it, I'm guessing.
No, buy it. We're on the support. We got Discord. We got everybody in Discord. We're giving out, sharing our light formulas. We're trying to.
Here's some game, y'all.
One of the reasons I was drawn to a Grandmaster level is because Thomas has been a grower since forever. And that's prime. That's first is like, how can we put something into the grower's hands to allow them to produce a better quality product at the end of the day. So we're always
and
R&D
also
and
like you try it. Like, here's what you guys think. Here's all your results. We're seeing this, but like, here, give it a go.
Yeah.
Like if you smoke the flower and you like it better and with a different, like what you're saying, doing it this way, or I like it better, I kind of tweak it at the end like this.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's really interesting. I think that's the next level of where we're going.
Definitely it's the next level, because like walking it through the spectral shifts during the day and the season is much more reminiscent of being outside, right? It's on it can feel that schedule.
And now I can tweak that strain to strain.
The last 2 times I've run this, I've taken it, harvested it 7 weeks. So not only is it increasing the secondary metabolite production, but it's also shaving a little time off the harvest window, because it's walked through the season. It's not lights on, lights off, and it goes and does its deal. It's actually being walked through those
12 hours of bloom or no?
12. Yeah, I'm still 12-12.
I'm just wondering, because a lot of people,
and there's potentially positive gains on both sides of that, like shorter light cycle, longer light cycle, longer dark cycle. I got so much shit on my table right now.
You're already side by side with 30 others.
That's a few years down the road, which I think that there's some potential in that, and I would love to dabble, but I can't, you only have so many controls I got to have some sort of regularity.
The other guys I've talked to where we start to have this type of convo, that's usually where it goes next, is like, I'm trying 11 and,
So
11, 13.
You're not losing any harvest weight. You're saving an extra hour. There's no reason not to do that.
But I think also like, why wouldn't it be strain specific? And also I would say the same thing with strain specific with spectrum. Like, yes, you might find an optimal overall, but could you fine tune strain to strain in your setting if, let's say, you're doing one light over one table?
100%. Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
Interesting for OG growers. I like this, because a lot of these home growers, bro, you want to do a 4x8 or a 4x4 and grow a monocrop strain under that light, or at least that feed system where you're not having to do multiple valves and really starting to get super technical, unless you want to get there. But to be able to monocrop, let's say one light or one row, that is massive. And then now adjust your spectrum.
Yeah. And that's really what it takes, though. Like you said, monocropping, repeating that same grow over and over, because it's like, if you're changing plants every run, what do you really,
it looks better.
There you go. It's all so anecdotal.
You don't want to fool yourself. You really want the advice. And that's why a lot of times you'll see some of the good growers, they won't tell their end consumer what's going on. They'll put out flower and then get the feedback and know, like, oh, that came from that other room, or that, oh, that's interesting, that was Rockwool this time.
Yeah. Blind, kind of like a double blind.
Just to really make sure that you're keeping yourself honest, because we fall in love with the plant.
Yeah.
I'm sure you go in there and you're like, man, the color, and then people are smoking and they're like, it's a little more harsh. And you're like, okay.
The spectrum tuning is definitely going to be something that, especially for the monocroppers, but that's another thing I say, even if you're just the, casual home grower, like I said, I use that light recipe for the Candy Rain and the Oregon, the Growmaster division. And I won. So we're all starting off with the same plant. Obviously, my growing style and the organic and no-till and environmental plays into it. But as far as I know, I was the only one using Grandmaster level LEDs. So not for nothing. I think there's definitely an advantage to manipulating the light spectrum for sure. And then
just let me break in. Yeah. If you're going to put a Grandmaster over, let's say, a 4x4 or a 5x5 tray, what light am I going with?
So in an open room, I assume, because if you're in a tent, there's a tent specific line where the bars and the diodes are designed specifically for a tent and the most uniform coverage of any light on the planet. So if you're in a tent, the tent series is your go-to. You're going to get corner to corner, wall to wall, even coverage, right? So if you're in an open room, you can be a little bit more, the Voyager line. If you're going to do the spectrum tuning, the Borg evolution is like, that's what I have in my room. It's the Cadillac, it's the light of all lights. There's like 60 pre-programmed spectrums that you can go through. You can adjust your own. You can make your own spectrum recipes, basically. So I say if you can choose the Borg evolution, that's the jam, right?
Oh man, it's been really cool watching you do it hands on, and now it just gives the power to the grower. Yeah. I love that, man. I love that, because there's an army out there across the world, and they're in basements, they're in attics, they're in garages, they're in houses, they're in warehouses, everywhere, right? Yeah. But every little piece of knowledge that we can gain, we all learn it together, and then we pass it on, and now it's like, people are zooming in on photos, right? They're zooming, they're like, look at, he's got it set to this, but information passes so quick. And it's like, you're one of the people we look to for education. That's why, like, I was stoked to have you on today, bro. Like, to be able to sit here and talk about spectrum tuning, to really dive into some grow stuff. I would say right now, specifically designed for the small batch cultivator. And then I'm sure it's going to take on like wildfire. Like where people are moving full facilities to Grandmaster at this point already?
Yeah, tons of facilities switching over.
Where are you seeing,
commercial facility all over the country. And now especially because there's so many energy utility company incentives for upgrading your old HID lamps to LED, we're getting substantial discounts and saving the producer a lot of money up front on the lights. They get reimbursed for not necessarily the whole purchase price of the lights, but very, very significant portion of it. So
do you do the HID, the high output ones as well? Like the ones where they hang them up high, almost like the old school ones, or are they all the spread out style?
So we have greenhouse lights. We don't actually have any HPS like bulb style lights.
Okay.
It's all LED, all LED overhead.
It's interesting to see because everyone's kind of figuring out their path into the LED business.
Yeah. And then so you see there's quite a few companies claim to like have a 1-to-1 HPS replacement, HPS spectrum, identical to the HPS spectrum. And if you'll notice, they're like, you've been in an HPS room, like it's a very distinct color. It's not the same color. So if you look in my room, like I start videos, like looking at the outside of the door, the light shining on the door, it's like you think you're walking into 10,000 watts of overhead bare bulbs. It's that color. It's there. It's a true HPS spectrum. So being able to actually show that to growers that have been running HID for 20 years and are super hesitant about switching to LEDs makes it's a little bit easier to swallow, because you can go in there and see the colors right, it looks right, and the results are there too,
Yeah, for reference, because most LEDs you go in look the same as like it would be daytime in here, so we can shoot even photography wise. We don't need any type of filters for LED most of the time. But you're saying with your spectrum, it would look that orange yellow.
Exactly, 100%. You think if you're looking at the door, light
which
shine
is what
through the
we
door
want, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. And it's, I believe, I'd have to double check this, but I believe it's because the blue is much more efficient. Red is less efficient. So it's costing you efficiency on your paper. The lights are all the blue light color, light, white, blue, because it's more efficient. You can get the higher efficacy ratings on your diodes, but the red is more useful for photosynthesis for the plant itself. Right. So having the ability to add that extra red in and control the ratios of that light is huge. And then you start to add the undercanopy lights in. Those are taken off, right? You see lots of commercial facilities adding those in. And the idea
because they're working though.
They're working.
That's what I always push now because I'm in these I'm in all these facilities, and one of the things I keep hearing is like unsolicited advice. Like, bro, look at this. Look at, that Faven. Because everyone brings up, for us, a lot of people bring up Faven as their sponsor.
He's a good guy,
but like, they'll be like, bro, look. And they're like, dude, look. And then they're bringing out spreadsheets. And one by one, I've seen so many people who are like, oh yeah, we're never going back.
Yeah. No, and it's like you don't have to increase your the power load. You're going to use the same wattage, right? You're just redistributing the light more efficiently from overhead to, you needed 1,000 watts overhead so it could blast through the canopy to those lowers, right? That was always the mentality. And now you dim that overhead light,
drop it a little bit,
add the wattage from underneath, so it's hitting those bottoms and turning C's to B's, B's to A's, get rid of the color discrepancy from the top to bottom. So it's really changing. And I just ran them for my first time, and it changes the approach for training, plant training, lollipopping. You're going to leave much more of the plant intact and just defoliate heavier because you're going to be able to harvest those lowers that would otherwise be trash.
Which I guess you got to up your airflow, but saves you manpower.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
and and it's like a 25% floor increase for dry harvest weight. So that's hard to argue against,
everyone I've seen is like a pound of light, on average, a pound of light more. That's like on average per strain across the board. Doesn't matter. OGs to OZs to Skittles to the pound of light more on average with under canopy lighting per light.
Huge.
Which is a lot.
Yeah.
Now you're seeing spectrum tuning and under canopy.
Yeah. see some
it's
options
funny
out.
how
Yeah,
it's one for one.
It's a slippery slope. Yeah.
So if I want to check out Grandmaster, where do I go?
Yeah. Grandmaster LEDs.com. There's a US and Canadian website. So, there's a warehouse close to you for shipping. You don't have to pay those import duties.
Do we have a discount code or anything we can give them free shipping code?
Floro Farm will save you 10% at checkout on any Grandmaster level products.
PH Farm.
FLOROFARM, Floro Farm.
Glad you told me that. Yeah, just want to make sure.
Yeah, no worries.
We get you guys slipping. You'll be in there like, it doesn't work in my DMs and shit.
I get those.
You
too.
lied to us. Nah, bro. Nah, you speak. Yeah, you couldn't get past 5th grade. Nah, but man, it's been awesome sitting with you, bro. This is probably about 8 months in the making.
Yeah.
6 months.
8 months. Yeah. We scheduled
It's awesome, bro. So it's people always ask me, you should get this guy on, and I'll giggle sometimes to myself because I'm like, oh, it's in the works. It's in the works for 6 months. But dude, thank you for coming to LA. Tell me why you were going to come to LA though, because is that still happening?
No, it was rescheduled. Unfortunately, I won't be able to make it. The American Autoflower Cup was supposed to be going down this weekend. I was going to judge that event. They rescheduled to next month, and our schedule's not going to work out. So I'm just down for the show. But yeah,
That's in LA.
Yeah, be sure if you're down here, check it out. Support the American Autoflower Cup. It's a great organization, and she kind of showcases how far the autoflowers have come. They actually have the rosin division this year for the first time, so you can check out some solventless autoflower concentrates.
Very interesting for the outdoor home grower, let's say.
100%.
If you're one of those guys that wants to do hands off and you don't want to have a hoop house that you're in every single day or at least every other day for a couple hours, this might be something you'd want to get into, or at least see if you like the rosin or if you like the smoke. And then if so, like, what is this?
And if you've been growing for 20 years, photo periods only, it's new and exciting. It's just something different to try.
It is. Dude, thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, man. Huge day.
Yeah, Floro Farm, first smoke of the day, FF, let's go. Peace, we're out.
First Smoke family, if you want more video, unreleased content, stuff we can't put on YouTube, you want early drops, weeks and weeks in advance, FSOTD.com gets you all that. You become part of the family, you get hooked up with early content, you get unreleased content we can't put out on YouTube because we get age restricted and we get strikes, the whole deal. FSOTD.com gets you hooked up like family. But if you just want to keep watching, here we go. Let's let another one roll.